Ms. Mount?
Here.
Mr. Jenner? Is he with us yet? Mr. Servette?
Here.
Ms. Pease? Ms. Wingwood?
Here.
Ms. Biscardi?
Here.
Mr. P.
Here.
Adequate notice was published in the Asbury Park Press on Thursday, February 25th, 2021, specifying the time and place of the meeting. And a statement to this effect shall be entered into the minutes of this meeting. The purpose of this meeting is budget preparation by the following departments. The meeting shall be open and action may be taken. I need to do a flag salute. Do flag salute? I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, so the purpose of our meeting tonight is for the schools and the departments to give a brief presentation of their budgets. I'll just give you a couple things that I'm aware of at this point, and then we can move into the presentation. We are currently still working on getting the budget to cap. Right now, I'm estimating we're probably going to need to make about $750,000 to $800,000 in cuts from the budget that was originally submitted. Our state aid was reduced by $106,000 this year under Senate Bill S2. It was more than what our S2 estimate was, but it was less than what I thought it was going to be. So it is something that's manageable, but we are down $106,000. We are still over $1 million below our funding levels from 11 years ago. Our federal aid, we are budgeting at 85% of our current allocation, which is what they're recommending. Now, it does sound like that the state does have some money this year, so hopefully that won't be the case and we'll get our full allotment, but we are budgeting at 85%. Our tuition income with Lakehurst looks like it'll be relatively the same. We may have a slight uptick in enrollment, with a larger 9th grade coming in and a smaller 12th grade going out. Rateables in the town, meaning the town property value, saw an increase of about $25 million over last year, so that will help with the tax rate per $100 of assessed value. Average home value increased to $199,300 up from $198,000 and $149,000. Just a real quick overview of some of the things we're dealing with this year, and then everybody else will give you a little bit more detail. Obviously, coming into this budget cycle, it's kind of been, it's been a challenge. This has been one of the more interesting years because typically when you're developing a budget for an upcoming year, you're looking at your current budget and you're looking at your prior year's budgets and kind of looking at trends and doing analytical reviews and stuff like that. Well, last year we were out of school basically from March on. There were a lot of expenses that we didn't have. There were things that we did have that we normally wouldn't have. So going into this budget process, this budget that is going to be presented tonight before you is a budget as if we are back 5 days a week in person in September. Now, the other piece of this, which is going to allow us to continue some of the stuff that we brought in this year, is the second round of CARES funding, which we will utilize to continue a lot of the programs and a lot of the software that we brought in for remote learning and to assist with learning growth. So the budget itself, as I said, is built as if we're back in September under normal circumstances, but there is a piece there that if that isn't the case, that we have that covered as well. Some of the major things that we're looking at in the budget is we have 1,200 Chromebooks to replace next year. Licenses are expiring. Now they can still be used. They just can't, but they won't get updates and those types of things. So they wouldn't be able to be used for state testing, things like that. So we may keep some of those here just in case. We may trade them in. We have about 1,200 of those that we have to replace. We are looking at replacing 190 classroom desktops. Again, I think some of the computers in these classrooms are the old white models from today, but they're very old, and the newer models will allow them to do a little bit more in the classroom. You'll hear from our curriculum department. We have another textbook purchase that's going to cross over mostly middle school and high school. I think there's some elementary component in there too, but primarily we're looking at a math program in middle school and some AP text and some other things in the high school, which they'll explain. Health insurance, right now they're projecting about 8 to 10% increase in the state health plan. The last couple of years, the renewal has come in a little bit less than that, so that's what we're banking on, but we're budgeting for the worst and hoping for the best. And then one of the other things that we're looking at is we're still looking to do surveillance cameras in all the elementary schools. We are still waiting on that security grant. It is submitted. We're still waiting to see if we get approved. If we get approved, then we'll have the funding through the grant to do that. If not, then it may be something where we target one school, do one school a year until we get them all in place. Obviously, some of the other things we're keeping in place is we're looking to continue to increase professional development opportunities. We're looking to add programs for all students to address learning delay as a result of this year. Some summer programs and even programs during the school year. Obviously, if you've been in our buildings are in great shape, so we have funds in the budget to continue to maintain and refurbish our school buildings. Some of our bigger projects that we're considering, this would likely be done through capital outlay. We are at the point now where our high school track probably needs to be resurfaced. It was originally done in 2009. We're starting to have some problems there, so that's something we'll be looking at. The same with our tennis courts at the high school, that was done at the same time. Our press box, also at our athletic field, is not in great shape, and that's something we may have to take a look at. We got paving throughout the district. We're still looking at improving communications in some of our other schools. We did the high school last year. We're looking to do that same thing, putting new phone devices in and using the software we have in the district called Single Wire, which will give them better communication between main office and classrooms. And then the last thing is, this may tie into the new CARES money, is we're looking to update our HVAC controls. That's basically a panel that controls all the HVAC in the district. That will give us a little more control over our equipment that we have now. And then the other thing is, even in your budget books, there are a ton of special requests in those books. Those are the things that are not necessarily in the budget now. We have discussed every one of those in our meetings of the central office. There are some that we'll be able to address this year. There are some we may be able to address next year, but we are going to have to prioritize and kind of see what's most important and what we need to do. And then from there, as far as the timeline, our budget's due to the county office on March 22nd. So at our March 17th board meeting, I'll be asking the board to approve the tentative budget. By then, hopefully I'll be at cap. Well, not hopefully, I have to be. The budget will be at cap. I think we're going to be at our 2% cap. I don't believe we have any enrollment adjustments or pension adjustments or bank cap that we can use. So we're going to be at our 2% cap, and then we'll go from there. So additional information will be presented. We'll do a full presentation of the budget probably sometime later April or early May, where we'll kind of break down the budget a little bit more and get into a little more detail. That's a general overview. The guys that are here, guys and girls that are here tonight, are going to come up and give you a little bit more specific information, and then obviously the board can ask questions. So with that being said, do you have anything before we get started?
No, just on an unrelated topic, I will just say that the first 2 days of the elementary school, bringing them in, went extremely well. I want to thank the administrators and the teachers for their input. I think we tweaked some things before we started. Just to give you an idea, we're roughly between 82 and 85% back. So we have a warrant fund, again, only 15%, so 15 to 20% are remote now. So they did a great job getting it started, and obviously we're going to keep an eye on it because we're only in 2 days. But it was something to see some elementary students come in who have not been in since last March. They have not have been in school until last March. So a full year without being in school. So it was something to see, and again, teachers are welcoming back, so I think we're in good shape with the elementary. We're now going to be moving on to the middle school and then to the high school and see how that goes. So I know we're working opposite, away from the budget, but just wanted to say that.
Okay, so our first presenters are the elementary principals.
Are we doing those in math again this year?
Well, what they're going to do is they're going to do an overview of things that are going on in all the schools, and then they'll be specific about everything.
So Lorenz, is that slip of the tongue, sir?
No.
This is with
Almost sounded like you said. Good evening, everyone. Can everyone hear me?
She's on.
Try to talk into the mic so the audience from the whoever's watching online can hear.
Pretend you're singing. Can you hear it?
There you go.
Is that better? Good evening, everyone. So first we want to thank the board, Mr. Trenkaway, and all of our central office personnel for your continued support in providing a quality education to the students in Manchester. On behalf of my colleagues and I, we wish to thank you for your continued support in what has proven to be an unprecedented year with unexpected challenges. We are extremely proud of this district, our schools, staff, parents, and especially our students. All of them have handled this well given the circumstances. The elementary principals and I have worked collaboratively to continue to provide consistency in programs and instruction across the district while taking into account the individual building goals and needs. Each of the elementary principals will begin tonight's presentation by highlighting areas that impact all of the elementary students across the district. I will be discussing the iReady assessment program. Mrs. Mazur will discuss the foundations program, and Mrs. Waldron will highlight social and emotional learning. We will then focus on the specific needs of our individual schools. I'd like to take a moment to talk a little bit about the iReady program. The use of the iReady program for reading and math instruction has proven to be an essential component in assessing student growth this year and tracking progress to drive student instruction. This tool has proven to be particularly helpful in the wake of hybrid or complete remote learning. iReady provides diagnostic data through its assessment component as well as personalized instruction. Teachers access helpful reports that reveal a student's strengths as well as their learning delays. Assessments also reveal grade level proficiency based on state standards. Teachers and administrators have been provided tailored professional development. These opportunities have helped our teachers differentiate and target instruction in our efforts to close any learning gaps. We have excellent diagnostic completion rate in both of those subjects, and the teachers are invested in its use. At this time, Mrs. Mazur will talk a little bit about, sorry, Mrs. Mazur. She'll talk a little bit about foundations.
Good evening, everyone. I join my colleagues in thanking you for your support in the purchase of many professional development opportunities that help our teachers differentiate and target instruction, such as the wonderful PD that supports our Foundations program. This program is for students in grades K through 2, as well as grade 3 students who need additional intervention. Foundations is a multi-sensory structured language program that provides research-based materials and strategies that build critical foundational skills, such as phonemic awareness, phonics and word study, high-frequency words, fluency, vocabulary, handwriting and spelling, along with comprehension skills. The professional development that has been coordinated by our curriculum team for the use of Foundations includes personal visits by Wilson Reading representatives, coaching sessions, study groups, and in-person and virtual meetings. Our classroom teachers, ESL teachers, and basic skills interventionists, as well as special education teachers, have all been included in the Wilson Foundation's professional development. Feedback from our teachers on the Foundation's professional development has been very positive, particularly during our coaching sessions, which is when the representative targets exactly what individual teachers need to do in order to meet the needs of their students. Our elementary administrators and teachers are excited that the curriculum team has incorporated funding in their budget to purchase decodables, which will enhance the Foundation's program as we continue to build comprehension and help our students make connections. Our Foundation's PD supports the teachers so that the program may be done with fidelity and consistency. On behalf of the elementary administrators, we thank you for your support, as well as the curriculum team who have coordinated all these professional development opportunities. And Mrs. White.
Can you hear me okay? Good evening, and thank you for allowing us the time to highlight our budget needs. As Mrs. Swift said, I'll be talking about a very important issue in our society today, social and emotional learning. The district has identified SEL and mindfulness as goals for several years now, even before COVID became the challenge that it is today. We recognize the urgency of meeting social and emotional learning needs during COVID, and we plan to continue meeting social and emotional learning needs during the learning recovery period as well. We will face this with the continued support of the curriculum department and our child study teams. Over the years, we have developed many programs to help our students and staff deal with anxiety, stress, and the everyday challenges that education puts in front of us. We've used programs such as Peer Mediators, the New Jersey Bar Foundation, Second Step, Hacks Good Behavior, the iMessages, the Medal of Honor program, and the Manchester Character Development program. Also that we could teach our students about self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, responsible decision-making, and relationship skills. We use our principals' blogs, we use our Google Classrooms and our Twitter accounts to share articles and positive messages so that we could boost our students and our staff's self-esteem. We created ways to build strong relationships. We used mentors of all ages. We have sensory areas for our students so that they feel more comfortable. And we use literature such as The Energy Bus by John Gordon, just so that we can make the point and carry the important message of mindfulness to everyone. So thanks to the curriculum department that we worked together with, we partnered with Sarah Stevenson of Mindful Educational Services. So prior to COVID, students and staff enjoyed in-person assemblies, and they learned how to self-regulate and deal with the stressors that are in our society. Since COVID, these assemblies are offered virtually. They're posted in classrooms, and they are still extremely effective. On April 19th, we will be hosting a virtual family night with the middle school parents, which I'm sure is going to be a great success. Next year, we hope to continue to have these resources available to us, if we have your support. In addition, we hope to invite back the Lead University team. This group of former teachers and artists work as a team to motivate, empower, and educate our students and staff to find the leader within themselves. And they do this through an assembly format. At our January Board of Education meeting, you remember we highlighted the presentation about SEL, offering many resources for our community. In addition, the Ocean County's Department of Human Services, they call it Children's Interagency Coordinating Council, better known as KIAC, provides workshops, newsletters, and networking resources to our school community on behavioral and mental health issues. Our school counselors and our child study team members then turnkey this information to our staff. As you know, there is work to be done, but as you can see, we have resources to guide and help us through these challenging times, thanks to your support. So now, Mrs. Swift is going to talk to you a little bit about her specific building needs. Thank you.
Once again, I'd like to thank the board for this opportunity to speak on behalf of the students of Whiting School. I believe that the budget prepared this year is fiscally responsive and responsible to the needs of my students. We continue to support programs that impact student achievement like Foundations, iWriting Math and iWriting Reading, Learning A to Z, and Just Words. These enhancements aid us in strategically planning instruction that is most beneficial for our students. This budget also includes software items like BrainPop, GoNoodle, Vocabulary, and Mystery Science that also assist us in our efforts to strike a balance between more traditional programs and those that focus on technology. I have included in this budget proposal a request for the following items. Special needs program enhancements impacting student achievement include the iWriting program supplements that serve as instructional aids to the computer-based assessment and data collection tool, as well as an after-school academic club aimed to combat the learning delays presented to us through hybrid learning. In addition, I've included a special needs one-time cost impacting safety, which would include the replacement of furniture in our media center, additional parking in the front of our building. At present, there is a limited number of spaces that often create challenges for our visitors, particularly on evening functions where the student body are invited to attend. This creates a safety hazard to those who are parking along Manchester Boulevard, in addition to the poor lighting and traffic on that roadway. This will facilitate better student drop-off as well. Lastly, folding chairs, which presently are requested by the Building and Grounds Department for events and sent over to Whiting School. That concludes my budget request for the 2021-2022 school term.
I have a question.
Yes,
So I like the idea of, after-school help, but would that just be something for Whiting, or are your elementary schools looking to do something also, so that way there's consistency among the three of them?
Yes, that's correct. All of the elementary schools will be asking Mrs. Mount for academic clubs to assist in making sure that we address some of the learning delays that may have been presented by this year's hybrid learning model.
And that's not just for basic skills and classified students, it's for any struggling student,
No,
right?
ma'am, exactly. It is, we really wanted to do this because often we found that the BSI students and our special education students may be able to take advantage of some of the programs, especially since all of our schools are Title I. And we need to combat addressing those needs those are students that may kind of slip through the cracks at times. So that's the purpose of us asking for academic clubs.
And you'll be using so you're going to use the iWriting to drive the instruction for that, getting the ideas of where it is, students have the gaps. And then you'll be using Foundations program in the after-school program?
The Foundations program may be used in addition to the iWriting program. The iWriting program is great in that it does give us all of those pieces of information that are necessary to address where our students' deficiencies may lie. So we definitely would use that assessment tool. Depending on the grade level would be the determining factor of whether or not they would implement the Foundations or any other type of Wilson programming. We also have the Just Words for the older students.
Right.
So we would determine that based upon what the needs of each individual student might be.
If a student's just struggling socially, emotionally, but not academically, will they be eligible for the after-school programs?
Well,
Strictly academic?
That's a great question. Well, I'll have to say that I think that oftentimes, Ms. Mount, I think my colleagues would agree, I don't want to speak on their behalf, but oftentimes the students who are struggling socially and emotionally, it often spills over into, unfortunately, their academic achievement. So I think, in looking at the entire picture, we would definitely look at whether or not a student's, behavior or issues at home or things that they are struggling with may impact their academic achievement and see how we can best address those in addition to whatever's going on social and emotional.
That could be like one month ago, the after-school program, maybe a social emotional component, and then the academic component as well.
Could you speak up? Sorry, I cannot hear you.
I just had said,
It's not on.
You should be on already, just toggle the button on the top. Is it right button?
Oh, here we go, sorry. I had just said that, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I had just said that it would be great to have a social emotional component in the after-school program and then the academic component as well. You know, a nice way to start, like the beginning part of it, when they come in, work together, do a social emotional, and then go right into it. I don't know, just thinking out loud, that would be nice to do both those components.
Well,
I think really that when we get in, we're going to have to tailor the program to see what we
Right.
have. We're really, I mean, when they come back in September, it'll be interesting. There'll be challenges. And if it has to go that, if there's more direction to that, I think we're going to have to tailor that. So I think you're right, depending on where their needs are. And again, we're hoping that we're maybe get back to somewhat normal from April, May, and June, but they're still going to be missing a lot. So when they come back in September, anything that we could do, I think, you make a good point. Both, then we'd have to have both options.
If I may add, we did that through our summer jumpstart programs last year, and we would like to, possibly model that through too. But we want to see what we're going to have offered to us for the summer, which is, maybe not, through this particular budget, but this would be looking more towards September plus. So we do, and just to answer your question, Ms. Mount, the programs might look differently, like it might not come on MTES's, where did you put it, Mrs. Swift, the one-time cost or special
program enhancement.
program enhancement. So for MTES, it was included into the actual budget, into a paid account. So depending on what funds I might have available in that area, I was able to put it there rather than, because I had other things in my special needs. Okay, so, but yes, we are all looking to do that.
Could I also add, this request for the IREADY is different than what we've asked in years past. In previous years, through Title I, we were able to purchase that module piece, and the diagnostic piece was for all students, but the modules were only for the BSI students. The principals this year were able to get that for all students, and they really do feel that it is a valuable resource to use for all children, but could be even a component of an after-school program for all kids, not just your BSI. And it would be K through 5. So that's an additional request, and that's why it's coming from their budget this year as opposed to putting it in title funds, which would only be earmarked for BSI students.
I think it's great that you want to reach all learners, even if they're not classified as BSI or classified with an IEP. And I agree, your parking lot is atrocious.
Thank you very much.
No, it's not, it doesn't look ugly. It came out wrong, but it's hard. It's hard to park there, when you go to events. It's very
On a busy road there.
Yeah.
Right. We're very concerned about the safety issues for students, and just making sure that, we don't encounter any problems. We've been very fortunate in that we have not, but even drop-off has become a little bit of a challenge as well. We've managed to implement something this year that's working, but even on Monday, when more students came back, we had to have additional things in place for those parents who were dropping off. So we're really trying to make sure that we create the safest environment possible.
I just want to say the IREADY program, I personally love working with my own child on it. It's super engaging. I'm just curious, because I know I like the diagnostic part and how it kind of alters to where they are, if they go backwards, if they go forward. Has the district pulled any data to show the progress or how IREADY has improved their learning? I know it's hard to say that in 2020, 2021 right now. Because I know my own child goes back and forth, up and down. It's like we go up a level, down a level.
Well, thank you so much for acknowledging the assistance that it's giving your child and the fact that you are participating as well. We actually, all three of us today had a professional development with the IREADY rep, and I don't want to steal the thunder of Mrs. Pedrosa in the curriculum department or Ms. Nickel, but we found it to be extremely valuable because we are able to determine within the context of our own buildings where the needs are as far as the students. It generates so many reports that give us as much data as we possibly think we need. Everything from what they are doing in class, right down to each individual student, where their needs are, where their growth patterns are, where their typical growth should be. They do the beginning of the year, the middle of the year, and then the end of the year, and then all of those generate appropriate reports. And that is great data collection for teachers. And there are tons of teacher tools. They have what's called a teacher toolbox. And there are tons of teacher tools for them to pull from as well. Ms. Nicola and I were looking at the math tools on the iReady math site. And it's really incredible what they have access to. And to your point, you know, the program will level itself out as children are doing things that they're doing better, then it becomes more challenging. If they're finding that they are not being as successful, they put it back so that they can find more success and move forward. So the data collection has been extremely beneficial, not just to teachers, but just for us, for our individual buildings, to find out what the needs are of the students, what the professional development should look like for teachers, where we need to focus ourselves on, and then right in the classroom on skills. And then, of course, you probably have seen parent or family reports that the teachers are able to generate and send home so that you as a parent can see what's going on in the context of the diagnostic and where the children are needing to make adjustments and where the teacher will be working. So thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that. Any questions for the way to school? Okay, thank you so much for your time. I believe my colleague is coming next.
It is my honor and my pleasure to present the Ridgeway School budget. As always, our priority is to maintain a safe and secure academic environment that supports a diverse student population, which at Ridgeway includes an ESL students, preschool disability and inclusion, gifted and talented special ed and 504 plans, basic skills, and of course, regular education students. To achieve our priority goals, I respectfully request the following considerations. First, allow for our projected 420 students to learn in an environment with less than 23 students in all preschool through grade 5 classrooms. Our 5th grade students and teachers are successful this year with our new departmental schedule. This is the first time that we're doing it at Ridgeway, and we absolutely love it. The teachers are successful, the children are showing great growth in 5th grade. We plan to maintain that in the upcoming year. Also, by reassigning a teacher to 2nd grade, we will be able to accommodate for 4 sections of grade 1 students who are going to be moving up to 2nd grade. Currently, we have 4 first grades and 3 second grades, so we have to reassign a teacher in order to do that. And then, of course, all other classrooms will remain the same. Also, I request that the number of our basic skills and special education teachers remain the same. We currently have 10 staff who teach either special education or basic skills. And in the coming year, I am hoping that of the 10, more will be available to teach our basic skills students and provide intervention. I also ask that paraprofessionals and lunch aides remain the same, and the number of our special area teachers remain the same. My very special request this year is to add 1 additional self-contained classroom in our building. Ridgeway currently is at maximum capacity in our K-2 self-contained classroom, and we are almost at maximum capacity in the grade 3 to 5 self-contained classroom. My plan is to create 3 self-contained classrooms, K-1, 2 to 3, and 4 to 5. This will not only allow teachers to differentiate for behaviors, but more importantly, students will get what they need in terms of programs that are aligned with IEP goals and developmentally appropriate for each individual student while staying right at Ridgeway School. The demand is certainly there with students requiring special services, specifically as they move from preschool and kindergarten. I am looking forward to having the option of keeping some of those students who would benefit from a self-contained program right at Ridgeway School. Finally, I would also request that I be permitted to replace retiring staff members. This will be imperative, particularly since every attempt will be made to utilize my current staff in order to create that additional self-contained K-1 classroom. My budget for Ridgeway includes technology replacement items such as classroom projectors, bulbs, and printers, as well as replacement laptops. In regards to curriculum resources, I am absolutely on the same page as my colleagues. We collaborate often, and I appreciate the input of the curriculum department, and I join the elementary principals in requesting that we retain and maintain our current programs, such as Ready Reading, Ready Math, iReady Diagnostics, as well as our reading program, which is Foundations in grades K to 2, and also Wilson Reading for our special education students. In terms of other special or important items in my budget, I have requested funding for furniture to open more outdoor spaces. One of the things that we all realized in this situation is how valuable the Ridgeway area is around the school building and how much our students love being outside, whether it be learning or just even eating lunch. And we would love to buy some furniture in order to open up some more outdoor spaces for them. Replacement of kindergarten play equipment and furniture, additional safety mats for our lunchroom, and I also ask that we maintain our funding to purchase our ESL materials such as Rosetta Stone. On behalf of our students, our families, and our staff, I thank you for your support and your consideration. Are there any questions related to? Yes.
The teacher that you're moving up, are you going to present the opportunity for whoever is chosen to move with her class? Or
I actually am in the process of thinking about that right now. It could be a move up, but it could also be a reassignment.
Okay. And then I like your idea of opening up another self-contained. Do you have a lot of students at Ridgeway attending MTES and Whiting? Because you said that way you can keep your kids. And will that impact, other movements? So like then with the MTS kid that goes to Ridgeway, be able to go back to their school? Have you thought about that kind of stuff?
Yes, and we do have the preschool disabilities program in my school. So, and I do see sometimes we have those students who are going into kindergarten and then they may move forward into at the end of their kindergarten year, the decision needs to be made about placement. So I would love the opportunity to say, well, Ridgeway, we have that program for them, and that K-1 would make a smaller classroom and it would be more tailored to the needs. As you know, there's a huge difference between kindergarten and second grade, especially when you're thinking about a self-contained environment. So keeping it K-1 would really be beneficial. And I know Mr. Lokerson is going to be talking about that more during his presentation as well.
I have one more question. You have mystery science
Yes.
at the end, and my question is, do the science programs, if we were to approve them, come with all the tools that the teachers are going to need to do the experiments, or are the teachers still going to have to go out and buy the bag of M&Ms or buy the bag of whatever you need for the science experiment?
Yes, the mystery science is tech-based, and so that would not include the manipulatives that you're talking about. The teachers, we would provide that in a different way for them, but they would get what they would need in terms of doing the STEAM activities is probably more what you're thinking of. That would be something that's actually embedded in our budget under we have materials, and just that would go for that type of thing. In math and also in science, I think we all have the money embedded for the manipulatives in order to do that.
Thank you.
I have a quick question. I looked at the projected, the students that you have in kindergarten right now, there's 80 students, and there's a projection of it dropping to 55 students.
I don't have 80 now.
The projection for next year.
For next year?
Yeah.
Well, kindergarten now.
The kindergarten now is 80 students.
55.
55.
55.
Oh, it's 55?
Yes.
And it's projected to be 55 as well?
Yes.
Is there something more that, I don't know, that's a big drop from, we go from 80 to 55. Is there something more we can do to try to encourage more
We didn't
kindergarten?
have it.
Yeah, I didn't have 80
52
this year.
this year.
I did a
This
few
many large
years
students
ago.
coming in from private kindergarten into first grade?
Yeah, we had, actually a few years ago, I had 4 kindergarten classrooms, and then that is when I had about 80. And then the following year, it dropped again this year to now we have 55 in kindergarten, so I actually have 3 classrooms, not 4. My thought is we would maintain that unless, of course, something happens over the summer, which has happened in the past.
Just so you know, I see where you see the 80. So the 2021 projections were projections that were made last year for this year. The middle column is what showed the actual enrollment as of this October. So really that's what you're comparing. You're comparing the middle column to the far column to the far right.
Okay, so then that's
So yes,
the
if you
left.
look at your kindergarten, we have 52 this year, they're projecting 55.
Yeah.
Right,
Page
okay.
15 is the actual.
Yeah, because there was 80 on there for the original projection.
Yeah, that first column for
Right.
these guys with what they were projecting last year.
Okay.
That's a great question. Another number that's usually flexible is the ESL population. We've had years where we had quite a few in kindergarten. We have had other years like this year. Most of my ESL students are in grades 1, 2, and 3. They only have 3 to 4 in kindergarten. We've had years where, those first graders now, they were all in kindergarten last year. The number was much bigger in kindergarten, and that also affects enrollment because Ridgeway has the ESL students who may have a homeschool of MTS or writing.
On that projection page, it looks like the special education's going up 12%. So I mean, that would warrant another classroom, 100%. My only question right now is, on the Rosetta Stone piece, has the district looked at any other competitors for Rosetta Stone? Only asking because we just went through this at my institution and we saved $60,000. And we're completely OER, and it's all free now, and it's actually better than Rosetta Stone, and more user-friendly, and more accessible to students.
Yeah, I definitely appreciate that. We were
It's
talking.
obviously something that we can
Yes, and I know
like
Mrs.
next
Saraceno is our ESL supervisor, and I know that the curriculum team, we meet frequently regarding our ESL programs and, different things that we'd like to use for that population. Rosetta Stone is only one of the things that we use, and we definitely can look, there's several different versions of it and different components that you can purchase for it. So I think that would be definitely something that we can look into. I know Ocean County Library also offers part of that program, but not as much as we have to have a full program.
You want to add something to that?
No, I couldn't hear the name of the program, but Mrs. Mount said OER.
You said OER, right?
Yeah, it stands for Open Educational Resources.
Thank you.
Higher ed has been forced into it, so we're all experts now in finding free things. So there's so much out there. It's I know K-12 has a lot too, but it's not happening here yet.
Thank you.
And I'll just say this, the Rosetta Stone software we're using, it's not costing us $60,000. It's probably costing us less than 10, I think, for everybody. But
We use it for foreign languages too,
Yeah,
so
so-
ESL.
yeah, now when we build the budget, we may say we're looking at Rosetta Stone next year, but if we do find another alternative, we're not locked into Rosetta Stone. We can go with another platform if there's something out there that's better. This is just essentially earmarking the funding.
I do have a question about projection. Obviously, projecting first or second grade is easier because you have kids in your school. How are the kindergarten numbers projected?
How I projected for next year is I looked at the 55 I have this year. I would like to think that I'm going to have 80 next year, but I'm not sure. I really, based on I'm looking at history and the trends of the last few years, it looks like Ridgeway has declined in the last few years, so I went with a conservative number and saying I have 55 this year, I'd stay close to that for next year. But like I said, we've had years where we thought we would have a certain number, and then we had a big registration right at the end of the summer, so,
So it's a guess. So I was just
Yeah,
wondering.
we had a demographic study done a couple of years ago, but now since then, we've had a lot more development in town. We've had a lot more families moving in from surrounding towns, so we have seen an uptick in enrollment a little bit. So, yeah, you're basically basing it on previous years. You don't typically see huge swings from year to year, but you do have them once in a while. But basically, that's what we're looking at. We're looking at our demographic studies. We're looking at trends, and just coming up with a number that we think is realistic.
And we will get a better, and this is Pedro's, they're going to have the kinder prep coming up in another week, so we'll get those numbers there, and we start looking at those, and that kind of gives us an indication, although many times it's like the day before we get kindergarten registrations too, but you get a general ballpark. And again, it is a fluctuating thing. One year, all of a sudden, they all seem to go into MTS, and that's why she lost about 25 students. It just happened to be that part of the town developed a little quicker. Now I think it's balancing a little bit more, although MTS has a lot more. So it's something at one point we actually had to look at and see if we had a shift, what we did with Ridgeway and MTS, but then it has since balanced out again. So we'll know a little bit more in a couple of weeks when we do kinder prep, and then we get into preschool or we get a kindergarten registration. Those numbers may change.
I would think it's probably going to. I know parents that are with their kids in private 5-day kindergarten is because of the work schedules and the average schedule we're using. And we're coming back 5 days next year, we're going to put the kids back in
You're right,
private
Mr.
school.
Pete. We actually
And
have
right now,
several.
3 classes, we're at max.
You're absolutely right. We did have several who came in August, had spoken to us whether they should make the decision to come in or not, and they weren't sure, and there were people who took the students, even homeschooling. You know, a few of them had come back since, but we definitely had students who had left.
Yeah, you do have some flexibility in some of your grades, where you may have to
So
shift
that's
that.
the
Yeah.
other question I have. Excuse me, this departmental thing you're doing in 5th grade, I love that. My kids had it in ES back in the 90s,
It's amazing.
so I've done it before. How are you going to do that with 3 classes? I assume you're having 3 5th grade classrooms next year, from 49 kids.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to maintain the 4 and continue to do the
Have
type of
10 kids in
department,
class.
but, right, but that's not feasible. So
No.
we are, right, so actually, Mrs. Waldron and I were actually just talking about this because we love it so much, we were thinking, I wonder if we could do it for 4th grade, which also would have 3 classes. So we're going to be working together and coming up with a schedule to see what we can do to make it work. But we definitely are proponents of it. It's children are
Okay, I love that,
doing
no
great.
problem, it's just,
For
the
sure.
logistics of doing
And
it in
it's
3
going to take a
classes.
little bit of creativity, but we think that there's a way that we can do it. So we're going to be playing with those schedules in the next probably few months and really working on that together.
Definitely help with preparation of middle school as well.
Yes. Mhm.
I think it's healthy too, because that way if you have a dispute with a teacher, you're not stuck with him or her for the whole day. Hopefully there are none of them.
Spoken by a high school teacher.
Are there any other Ridgeway questions?
Yes, the iReady license says $10,089. Now, if that gets approved, does that to cover all the schools? or
No,
is it
that's
just
for
so
sure.
each school
Right.
gets 10? Okay.
Yes.
No, each school is per.
It has its own license, okay.
Yeah, so the plan at least for the next 2 years, because the next round of CARES funding, I think we have 2 years suspended, will be to fund iReady and similar projects through the CARES money. So it'll be another part of the budget. 2 years down the road, 3 years down the road, we'll probably have some decisions to make, assuming everything goes back to normal, on what we're going to bring back into the budget and what we're not. But for the next year or two at least, if these programs are needed, we'll be able to fund that through the
We'll
CARES.
still have the iReady, it's just the extra stuff that you're looking at.
Right.
And then we're very fortunate, obviously, the state in their wisdom gave us about a week's notice to say that they needed mid-year data, local data from all the schools, all the districts. So luckily we had the iReady and some of the middle school, we had the link and we were able to get that assessment. So we'll have that mid-year data for it, which is coming up shortly.
And as Mrs. Swift said earlier, the administrators had iReady training today. And it was so extremely interesting and valuable because we really were able to dig deeply in our data and we can see exactly which classes maybe needed more support, which actual students need more support in reading or in math, and we have more of a direction of where to go. We spent a lot of time talking about how important prerequisite skills are, talking about incentives, way to get the teachers more on board and comfortable with using the data. So it's been just so extremely valuable, the professional development not only the teachers have had, but the administrators as well. So we really are working more hand in hand. I know in all the buildings, our assessment teams have been at it from the end of August, really trying to figure out where to go next and what kind of data do we need to drive our instruction. So it's been really a wonderful experience.
Thank you.
Okay, I do have one more question. Can I-
Sorry.
Just right there. So you want to add a K1 special ed, do you have a space for that? Like, do you have room?
I actually do have a space, so yes, I have one classroom that in the course of the last few years, we've had to take maybe 4 classes, went down to 3, but so I ended up with, I do definitely have a classroom that I can do that. Yeah, no, that's a great question, I do.
The one building we have.
We don't need to build on, we can't do anything like that.
I love the outdoor learning space idea, I just wanted to say that.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Your lighting is nice.
So there are lots of little comments that I would make along the way. When we do plan the budget, we don't just guess what the numbers would be. It's really hard, I know that, but that's one area of data that we've learned to look at. There's lots of different type of data. It's not just student assessment data. So I know at MTS we've been keeping
track over the years, actually since 2016, of our enrollment, so that I can, make a prediction that is a valid prediction. And it's very interesting to note that, although I know they did say that all of the schools were going to drop enrollment, we did not. We did not over all of those years. It might have been 5 students in any given month, but we did it month by month. And we still are the largest of the 3 elementary schools, and that's why that expense that you see in there for MTS is so large for iReady, because it is a per pupil cost. But it is very much needed and appreciated through the CARES fund grant for sure. So at MTS, our goal is, obviously our main goal is to support our students and our staff in a safe learning environment, whether they be in person, remote, or hybrid. And we want to be able to provide equity in our education. We plan to continue to accelerate the learning and narrow the achievement gaps with all the programs that we have already in place that both of my colleagues have already talked about tonight. They're all included in my budget as well, while recovering any learning delays that we might have occurred our students might have occurred over this past year. Hoping to maintain the professional development as well that we've had, because as both of my colleagues already said today, and every time we have an iReady or a Foundations or Wilson training professional development, we learn something new. We learn something to work with our staff for. And I don't know, I've been in other districts before, and I've never known them to support their administrators with the professional development the way we do here. I did put a couple of special requests in that I wanted to mention. At MTES, our teachers are requesting the Scholastic News magazine. Now, I know you guys have all heard of that and thought, why isn't that just in their budget? Why don't they, something like an online component certainly would be beneficial to target, for targeted support for the comprehension of complex text. So this additional media would be helpful to our students, and our staff can provide that for them. But I had to actually take other things out of the budget to replace, and that's why this kind of came into the new items category. It complements our balanced literacy program and our social studies and science. Under special needs and program enhancements, we're requesting at MTS the Foundations Durables for our K to 2nd graders. The wear and tear over the years of those would require this request. As a one-time cost, we've spoken of the iReady assessment and personalized instruction reading site. Mrs. Swift already spoke about the many benefits that it has for this purchase. And lastly, desks and chairs. After rearranging for COVID, it's really interesting what you find. We've replaced things over the years, piece by piece, little by little. But we really have no way of knowing what the future holds for September, whether we're going to be back in our cooperative groupings or flexible seatings or whatever, but we definitely know we're going to be in need of desks and chairs. So thank you for the consideration that you can do with regard to MTES and maintaining our staff so that we can service all of our students the way that we have over the years and plan to continue. And in closing, I would just like to thank all of you for your dedication and your commitment to our community. I know that this past year has not been easy for any of us, but you always listen to us. You really care about our teachers, and you always do what's right for our kids. And for that, we are, the 3 of us, are very grateful. So thank you so much. Any questions with regard to MTS or any additional questions?
This sounds silly. What equipment needs to go in the storage shed that you're requesting?
Say it again?
That you're requesting a new shed for playground equipment storage? Like how much equipment?
Yes, so, well, there's the closet that we have in the gym needs additional storage space. We also have, hopefully, we can use some of our chess pieces and we have hopscotch chess, large, full-size chess pieces that we want to be able to put out there as well. They're on top of in our media center and not easy to use for the students. If they're outside, we can just grab them and go. I'm sure our maintenance would also like to be able to use them for their salters and their sanders. If you walked into MTS, we have that lovely closet on one side, and we thought that was going to take care of all the extras. just so that we have a nice clean appearance when you walk in, but things just seem to always grow and need a home.
And my other question is, how old are the foundations kits that are?
3+ years, depending on the grade. And they're missing like additional tile pieces and the dry erase boards, you know, they write on and it just, they kind of tear the edges on and our thought process on that is we're going to repurpose them. And if we have, we don't, but if we have remote-only students, we're going to send them home because we weren't able to send home. We had paper ones to send home, so we would reuse them with students that were working from home, or possibly even be able to use them for after-school programs if somebody needed to take them home and have it. You know, we're not going to throw anything away. We're going to reuse them and repurpose them for sure. Any other questions? Thank you again. Have a wonderful evening.
All right, next up is middle school.
Well, good evening, everyone. I'd like to thank you very much to the Board of Education, Mr. Tuckaway, Mr. Lorenzen, District Office for allowing me to present the middle school budget this evening. The information that details in my proposed budget for Manchester Township Middle School, I believe this budget meets the needs of our students and our staff of the middle school, and it also includes educational programs that we hope to maintain in the 2021-2022 school year. The middle school includes a diverse education population, which includes regular and special education, basic skills, an autism program, gifted and talented, and ESL. At the middle school, we offer a rotation of electives for our students that includes art, family consumer science, STEM, world language, band and chorus. The middle school also opens, unfortunately we are not doing this right now during the pandemic because we are using our Genius Lab, but we would like to maintain the Genius Lab next year as well to bring back and deliver the science and social studies curriculum with this lab. All students will be exposed to the lab and participate in Genius Lab. During Genius Hour, students create a self-driven passion project. And this project came from Google when they did this with their own employees, and employers found that when their employees did passion projects, they produced well in the rest of their job. We felt it really, really works at the middle school. Again, with the way we've set up, we're using that room, but we're hoping to maintain that next year.
How do you work that into your schedule? I know the Google program, they gave your employees 1 day a week, 1 day a month.
How we do it is we do it during science and social studies, so they have a schedule. And a lot of times, because it's such a big room, a lot of the smaller classes can work together. So it's really a great program.
Okay.
Last year it worked wonderfully until March, so we're hoping to maintain that again.
Okay.
We also are committed to offering our students extracurricular activities as well. And as you know, we got them on this year. We are just currently finished our basketball and cheer season, so we're very, very excited about that. So we are hoping to maintain fall, winter, and spring sports. Our clubs have been going virtual, and that's been working really well, but we're hoping to maintain them. Impact Club, Student Council, Future Engineers Club, drama and stage bands, chorus, gospel chorus, and yearbook. We are currently still doing our yearbook. There was a beautiful Dr. Martin Luther King tradition. Thank Mrs. Swift for that last week, but we're hoping to do that and continue that. I do have one additional request. We were very lucky to get cameras in the middle school last year, and we love them. But like anything, you find out where there's a little flaws. We found out that in our stairwells, the outside stairwells, there's a lot of blind spots. Blind spots in middle school is not a good thing. Not a good thing. So, and we actually did find, before we left in March, that we had a lot of discipline in these little areas. So we're asking for 4 cameras for those areas. So with that being said, I'm just asking also that we maintain the programs that we have. Brain Pop. This Brain Pop is used for grades 6, 7, and 8. It's educational videos, games, it's used everywhere. It's used in ESL, special education, regular education. We're hoping to continue that. Lincoln, I have Lincoln in here. We have the curriculum department and I have had a lot of talk about Lincoln, whether or not we're going to continue with this. But it really, really worked very well to see where our students are with our benchmark assessments and keeping our data. So whether it's Lincoln or something else, we are requesting a program. Achieve 3000. Achieve 3000 we use with our basic skills program and we're looking to use with our summer programs. And with our basic skills program, we are asking for that. And with the summer programs, we'd like to use it for both summer enrichment and stepping up. IXL mathematics, we are using with math. That is currently being used with our basic skills. And we too are asking for Rosetta Stone and Systems 3000 for our ESL. Our curriculum needs, we did get a new textbook this year, and we're looking to get some books to go along with that in our textbook series. We are also looking for a 1-year access, possibly 3 years, to the McGraw-Hill Science Online, Social Studies Online. I can't read this. Yeah, I read that when I kept me one time, I apologize. We are going to continue we're asking to continue our Title I programs, which is Project Boost and Tutor Time. These are offered after school to our students. For our regular education students, we do offer that one extra help with each teacher. Right now, it's been very, very fortunate because each teacher does it for an hour after school. But when the regular school year comes about, they'll still get the same thing because every child could get a different teacher because we like to plan it on different days so that you can go to science or social studies or math. The facilities, we have had wonderful facility updates in the last few years. We are pleased the way everything looks. I have a great custodial team. I thank the buildings and grounds, and I'm hoping that we can maintain it. We are not looking, other than the cameras, for any kind of a facility update. We did get the exterior cameras, and I do remember as I was listening to the elementary, we did receive a grant a couple of years ago, and we too bought some outside furniture. And we also thank buildings and grounds because they actually put like cement pads down so that we could set the tables out there. So we're really trying to get our outdoor space. And ours is like a courtyard, so it's, you know, they come out of the cafeteria, so it's very self-contained, so it's very, very nice. And as far as what we've done this year, we've done a lot of professional development as well as the elementaries, and we do thank the curriculum department. We had Dr. Severance. She actually just came today, and it was amazing. She worked with data, student engagement, social emotional learning. Sarah Stevenson has also been doing a lot with the middle school, and that we do that through our PE and health curriculum. We had LSI training in the beginning of the year, which is Learning Science Institute for our science teachers. We offer Gifted and Talented, which was identifying those advanced learners. And we just put out a staff survey for SEL to see what our staff needs to make it. Thank you. Just to put out what our staff needs for their own social emotional needs. And we do a lot of study state training, which is actually what we are using for the benchmark assessments for our ELA 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. So, okay, it was a lot of kind of evidence. Any questions?
I don't know if it's more for you or for curriculum. So System 44, I'm just becoming familiar with that in my district, because our middle schoolers use it, not in high school. So the next program is Read 180. Do you guys use Read 180, or does it just stop at the phonics basics System 44, and then once they test out, they're done with it?
So currently, we're using CARES money. We're using System 44 for ESL at the middle school and the high school. Our licenses are only for System 44, but you are correct. If they level up, then they would need the next program, and we would possibly consider getting licenses at that point for the children to continue on. Mrs. Saraceno, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, the ESL students use System 44, as Mrs. Pedrosa said, and when they test out of that, they go into the next level.
which is legal.
And it's only used for just the ELL kids for
Only
ESL?
ELL.
Okay.
And there is also, what we were talking about, just discussing, because this is a fairly new program for us. Our population, as you know, has increased. We're looking for materials that could be used to support those particular students. What we like so much about that program is that it definitely is adaptive. The teachers are finding great use for it. They did have some PD that allowed them to be able to feel more comfortable with using it. Of course, as we did say, if we see the need or we start to see them level up, then a conversation would be, should we be getting the next program for those particular kids? We haven't gotten to that point yet, but it's something we are being aware of when we're watching as they are accelerating and moving on.
Do elementary principals, teachers and stuff have access to it? Because in my district, we're not doing it with just ELL, we're doing it like they're starting at elementary.
We actually, it's a great question. We actually, when we brought them in, when we were looking at it, we looked at it for all levels. The elementary principal, Mrs. Mazer, and those teachers decided not to because they are using foundations, and they felt that was where they wanted to invest their time. They didn't feel that it would be appropriate at this time. I'd be interested to hear about how it's going, in other places with the younger students, but we did not feel at this point, nor did the teachers, feel that it would be appropriate for the elementary students.
Now, has it been brought up to the self-contained or the resource teachers at the middle school level that don't teach ELL, if they wanted to have access to it?
It hasn't been, but it certainly is a consideration. We actually had found out about the program because we go to these supervisor meetings for ESL. And a lot of those districts, in particular, Asbury Park, was talking about the growth in their population. We actually had Dr. Ochoa come in, and Julie actually, when she came in, she spoke about the gains they had made. And of course, she says that there were many gains, but she couldn't attribute only to that particular program. She just felt that in looking at it, the data was moving in that direction. So we only pursued it for that, but it's certainly a consideration, and we do have some available funding that we could talk about, certainly with Mr. Wilkerson and with the teachers and with the principals.
I'm new to it, to the program too, so, it seems like a really good program. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to start, you said you may need another teacher to teach the Wilson program. What's going to drive that? Data? Is that data-driven or enrollment-driven?
No, we don't need another teacher.
I thought it was in your things that you had. One additional teacher might be needed for the Wilson learning program.
We actually did get an additional teacher this year, and I must have just left that in there. We did get an additional teacher this year, and actually, no, we don't need an additional Wilson teacher. But what we did was we were looking for an additional basic skills teacher this year, and we were very, very fortunate that we did. We hired a special ed teacher, and then we had one of our other teachers that used to be basic skills, a special ed teacher. But with all this now, who took a leave, who took this, so we're down to 2 basic skills teachers in ELA, but we're really, really hoping next year that we will have the 3 teachers back and we'll have that program. Yeah, I apologize. And as far as Wilson, though, I would like to share that with the Wilson program, what we did do is we trained extra staff, special ed staff, so we really have a very strong Wilson program right now, so we're very, very happy. We actually have 2 teachers currently working it. We have another teacher that does just words with certain students that need it, and then we also have another special ed teacher that currently is doing all of in-class support, but for our Wilson needs next year, we have a lot of room there. So.
How old is the language arts series?
It's brand new. This is the first year. Yeah, it's brand new. So we have 6 years online with it. So now we have 5 left. And they got a lot of training, and that's why language arts used to use Lincoln as well. So there are still some things in there, but now StudySync has replaced that, and it's been really kind of one source for everything, textbook, online, and their data.
How is that going? Because here's the elementary not having a reading program, and this is the first time that the 6th grader is now opening up a book, a textbook. How is that going? Because that's kind of overwhelming for a 6th grader to come and have a book and hasn't had them all through elementary school.
Well, we really always have run the program like this, and we never really saw, a problem. They really do adjust well to it, because with the language arts, you have a lot of your ancillary resources, you have trade books. So they use the textbooks, but there's so many other things that they use as well. So they really do have a fine, transition into that.
The other thing, may I add, we, at the elementary, we have purchased in grades 3 through 5 an anchor piece, which is the Ready Reading Coach. So it is a workbook.
Right.
The teachers actually requested that because they felt that would be an anchor, and that was one missing piece that would be very much skill-driven, grade level. So everybody has a copy of that particular in 3 through 5, that book.
And this is the first year of that?
No, last year I believe was it 2 years?
I've had it for about 3 years.
Yeah, we actually replaced, we had initially a different consumable, and then we moved to that when we started implementing the iReady. And what was attractive to it is that the teachers felt that it created those on-grade level kind of skills and allowed them to be able to do some whole group instruction, but then break into the small groups. And it was very similar. It reminded me of years ago when we had purchased at the middle school the consumable readers book, interactive reader. So it very much reminded us of that. It's consumable, they can write in it, so it seems to transition very well. I'm sorry, I didn't hear you, Mr. Pete.
No, I don't know if it's a consumable.
It is a consumable.
And the 7th and 8th grades
It's all 3 grade
all-
levels. They're
And
amazing.
it's going pretty well, they're really.
Yeah, the teachers love it because there's so many resources. And that really was a committee was formed at the middle school with ELA teachers. And they really looked, and I thank Mrs. Saraceno for that because Mrs. Saraceno had several publishers come in and give show us all their products. And the teachers, really pretty much all said this is the one that they wanted. So it's kind of unanimous, and they really do like it because there's so many things, and they're learning a lot. And Mrs. Saraceno was just talking today that we were trying to figure out how to change something to a PDF that for a student that needs a special, has some special requests. And like Mrs. Saraceno was on emailing the gentleman, and so was the teacher. So it's very friendly as far as like a help desk kind of thing.
Tough year to have
What's that?
tough year to have a first textbook.
Yes, that's a good point. To implement any program new is always a little bit of a challenge, but then certainly during this year. The positive, though, is that it does have a great, strong online component, and it does have that assessment piece as well. So it served us very well, but you're absolutely right. Implementing something for the first year is always a challenge. Pacing becomes an issue. And then on top of that, we put this situation in place. So the teachers have done a tremendous job.
They really have.
And Dr. Saraceno has given a lot of PD support. And I think, implementation is going to be key if you give PD and you provide support, and that has been critical to that.
And it does include the benchmark assessments like the Lincoln did that they used, so they were able to, at least that was the same routine that they were used to doing the A, B, and the C. So
It's an all-inclusive program with a diagnostic screener, readiness screener, benchmark assessments, and it's, the elementaries have iReady, we have StudySync, which is an all-inclusive program rather than.
And that's taken over the Lincoln really for language.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think for the language arts, it's a little bit user-friendly. Math, Lincoln was very, very friendly for math, but we really felt that it wasn't as popular with the ELA teachers.
Yeah, and it would be too much assessment, Mr. Treadway. We really felt that if we're going to be all in with StudySync, the teachers felt very comfortable with that, why do both, especially in the situation that we're in. And the data has been very, very useful and very friendly for them to be able to pull immediately, look at, and view. So we're very pleased with that.
Thank you, Mr. Driver.
Thank you very much. Thank you for my accommodations, some masks, some water. Now I'm breathing again, I'm feeling good.
Good job.
Mr. Allen.
Guess I can talk loud enough, it's a little low. Perfect, thank you. Good evening. I want to thank the board for allowing me to present the budget for the 21-22 school year. Currently, our staffing needs are, we have two teachers that are going to retire at the end of the school year. We will need to replace two teachers. One is a special ed English, and the other is engineering, technology and engineering. We are also looking, we are definitely exploring this about a sign language teacher. We're exploring that. However, they are hard to come by, so we're just exploring that for the program. We can use that as a foreign language elective, or it can count as a foreign language. And we also are looking for that maybe to be an elective for our autistic kids.
And where does that interest coming from students, or is that staff driven, or is that?
We did a survey to our students, and it showed that they showed some interest. But one of our parents had brought it to our attention, the parent, and then we got a survey to see what their interest, and there was interest from our students.
Is that American Sign Language?
Is it universal sign language or American sign language?
Very good universal sign language.
My daughter graduated with Abby Clark in Spanish. We were sure she was going to take Spanish in college. She went to college and took sign language as her second language. Now she's certified and teaches it. So that's a lot of opportunity.
And we actually, some of our students would be interested in having multiple levels of it. And a good percentage said that they would be when I take those classes.
Fantastic. Like here again, it's like we love to have offer Japanese and Chinese too, but find a teacher for it.
Okay, the summary of our overall budget. Basically, our goal is focused on maintaining our technology, tools for our teachers, facilities improvements and upgrades, support of our programs. Over the past years, we have done a lot to add some courses, some programs, so we want to make sure that those programs and courses are sustainable. And we moved to a lot more online textbooks, and we want to make sure that we fulfill our departmental needs. And some of the resources we use in the programs is Naviance from the guidance department. This has been using it for the past 3 years now. It's utilized from the grades 9 through 12 with the focus on college and career readiness. And the APEX is an online curriculum, and we use that for credit recovery and our SOAR program. It is a great tool because it really helps struggling seniors if they need to take some recovery from some past courses. They can do that. Sometimes they take it over the summer, and then definitely assist our SOAR program.
Have you used the APEX program at all for homebound students? Be able to keep classes instead of
no, that's something that we're, from the pandemic, that we're looking to do.
I know a lot of districts use it for that. We have homebound, and then it just takes away the other components to get that teachers.
Yes, because sometimes it is, you have a hard time finding teachers for it.
But I know other districts do use the APEX for their homebound students, to be able to maintain credit and so forth.
Absolutely. And then we had our AIM program last year. It was the first time we went during the summer. And so obviously COVID was here, so we decided to go run the program anyway. So we learned a lot from the first year of the program, so that's something that we want to continue. The AIM program is a program where...
I know it is about participation. How many students?
Oh, it was 12 students.
How many were invited? How many showed up?
About 20 were invited, so 12 showed up.
That's 60%, that's not bad.
Are the 12 that showed up being academically successful now?
So there was, I think we had 2 students who were unsuccessful, and then they had to go into the pre-algebra or foundations of English. So that's what happens. The kids are not successful, then they would go into remedial class before they go into the actual Algebra 1 or English 1. So I think that for the first year, it went well. There are some things that we want to do differently to kind of engage the kids a little bit more. It was a struggle in the beginning because we were doing Zoom, so the kids didn't want to turn on their cameras and get involved. So that's something that because usually that program would be kids coming into the building for 4 days a week in the summer. So we had
2 out of 12 that didn't qualify to go into regular classes. What are we anticipating? What kind of number are you anticipating?
For that year?
No, for you had 12 students, how many would you have expected not to make it? That's the average?
I think so.
I don't have any idea.
Yeah, if you have like maybe 10% of the kids will not probably pass the program, but.
So instead of 1.2, you get 2.
Are you working with the middle school now, so that way you can grab the ninth graders that
Sarah's
are
done a
coming in
great
now?
job with that.
Yes, Ms. Tifo here has met with the middle school administration and guidance counselors,
And
and actually she's met with the 8th
And
grade.
Lakers, by the way.
And Lakers, correct. To kind of tell them about the AIM program and kind of let the 8th grade parents know about their expectations of passing math and English.
And then we meet with them throughout the year. It's like every 4 or 6 weeks. I meet with the 8th grade students at the middle or Lakehurst, and we target kids who are academically struggling, and we work with the counselors and the principals to try to find ways to mediate and find tools to make these children be successful. Because obviously our goal is to not have them in the program, but if they are in the program, it's still a success because it's giving them opportunities to remediate, to close the gap that they're finding right now, and then to be successful in September. So they're not coming and floundering at the high school.
How are they responding, like, with the whole virtual world that we're living in? And are the parents meeting with you and are the kids meeting with you so that way you can?
It's not really a choice. It's usually they have to meet with us because, I mean, when the principal or the guidance counselor reaches out, they haven't seen it as, I'm not going to show up, I'm not going to meet, because at the end of the day, it's to help them be successful.
Feel it's not enough.
Yes.
And actually, to be honest, talking to parents in the summer is a lot easier than during the school year. They're a lot more available, to be honest with you. So in that respect, we went well. Some of our technology needs, I think during this high grade schedule, a lot of our staff has really done well using technology. We are going to continue with the IXL platform for our math-based skills and our special ed. And again, we're using that for skill development and data collection. And the ELA, we're using Achieve 3000. Again, that's for our basic skills population and also the AIM program. Again, we've heard a lot from the ESL. We're going to use System 44. And also, the System 44 is more for our course design, and then Rosetta Stone is for the support of the instruction. One of the things, one of our initiatives this year was to go to a reader workshop model in our ELA classrooms. So a large portion of our money, because Mrs. Saraceno twisted my arm, so we are spending some money to build some classroom libraries for our students for the reader workshop. And again, we're going to take this in stages. So our first stage is we're going to build the classroom libraries so that we can get our kids reading more.
No, you say library, do you mean for students to individually choose individual books to read, or to have the whole class read the same book, or?
For kids to individually choose.
Okay.
Where are you getting these books from, like the ideas to get the books? Are you talking to the local librarians? Are you looking at student interest? Are you going to have somebody come in and book talk and maybe poll the students to see which books would, be most enjoyed by them?
So
Yes, I've been working with the teachers, the English department, and they've, since last year, they've made recommendations for specific books. We research them, we look up, what the content is, the appropriateness of it for the grade level, and, we're just forming those lists now, but probably will get students involved in some of those choices.
And our teachers are very excited about that because they're always saying we got to get our kids to read more, we have to get our kids to read more. So they're excited about having the classroom library.
So what's your goal to have that, like 20 books a classroom, 50 books a classroom? Is there a goal? Or?
The goal is to first set up model classrooms at every grade level, so one for 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th, so that, because it's a shift, so we need the proper setup first so teachers can see what a Reader's Writers Workshop classroom looks like, and then have teachers visit that classroom and have professional development that's in place this year for them. Actually, through ETTC, we have 2 professional development days and a coaching day this year already set up, coming up. And then we did a book study as well on Reader's Writers Workshop last year. So it's a process, as Mr. Adams said, we're scaffolding that process and set up those classrooms. We'll have teachers visit those classrooms to see it in motion, how it works.
And I know there's a study came out just this week actually that 85% of our students are reading below grade level. Coming in, graduates, 85% are reading below grade level, and people of color is even worse, and boys is even worse. And they attribute part of that to boys don't find they like us are always written from a female perspective. I know that's not easy these days, but it's what it is. You know, so I'm hoping you keep those kind of things in mind there.
Absolutely.
Raise those levels up.
It's been a big conversation for us, Mr. Pete. We actually started 2 summers ago working on the summer reading because that is a very different type of purpose for reading. We really wanted kids to pick up books that they would enjoy, allow for more diversity. We worked with not only our librarians here and our teachers, but we also used our staff at the Manchester branch of the library. We also spoke about changing some of the summer assignments so that we could get kids really this love of reading for the summer. As Dr. Saraceno said, the conversation in terms of the model classrooms are very different because we want to make sure that the material is vetted. We want to make sure that the teachers are feeling comfortable, giving them enough time to be prepared to have those conversations with the kids. There's been a lot of conversation between, book talks and what are the required readings. Dr. Saraceno did purchase books last year. We had requested books for this model classroom. We actually are in the conversation now about buying more of those titles so that we'll have more in the kids' hands so that perhaps they could have mini book talks or, mini study groups with them. But Dr. Saraceno and the teachers have really been going through. And I love the idea of bringing students in because you want to make sure that they are talking about what they're interested in. You're absolutely right. We moved to a lot of nonfiction, but then it changed a little bit. And to get the interest level there, but also to make sure that it fulfills the requirements of the New Jersey Student Learning Standards and the skills. So it is a process, but we're working towards that.
I hope you're looking more modern authors as well.
Definitely, that's a big push by the teachers.
I teach in high school, and I see the books that these kids are coming from in high school. It's the same tired books I read 2 years ago. There's very few new authors or authors of color. Very few of those anymore, and we need that.
And Latino as well. And that has been a big...
Latino, Hispanic, Oriental, whatever.
Absolutely. We've been looking at that, and we're also looking at, pairing some of the pieces that we have with more authentic or more current pieces as well, so that you're having, discussions and both voices being heard. And that has been an ongoing process.
Absolutely. All right. So just looking at some enhancement of resources and some of this has been just continuing on. In the math department, we used the CUDA software. We've used it last year. And again, we're going to get some licenses for the students for that. Every year we purchase graphic calculators for students who might need that calculators in the classroom. In the English department, Common Link is for that's when we do our benchmark assessments. We use Common Link, and again, achieve 3,000. Our electives department, our technology portion, we're going to get Game Salad license, and that's for our intro to animation, and the music department wanted the portable stage, and so we're looking at purchasing that for them if you approve.
Do we have teachers that are qualified to teach that Game Salad?
Yes. Okay, so in facilities, we have been continuing on purchasing student desks. We've been doing this for the last 3 years now, just phasing out some of the older desks and the smaller desks and keep improving with the student desks. We also walked around with the custodian, and we need to upgrade some of our teachers' desks and some file cabinets in the classroom. We're in the last phase of getting stools with backs for the science classrooms. Walking around, we have to look to replace some inside classroom doors. Some of them have been here since the school opened, so we're looking to replace that. We're in the process of upgrading our training room. And just before we went out on COVID, we had a company coming here for the sound and for the projector. So we're looking to upgrade that and improve that here in the auditorium. That's all I have. Any questions?
I have a question about the Manchester Ocean County College Partnership Programs. I can't recall from last year. Is that for all grade levels, or is that starting at junior and senior level? So when my daughter's a freshman, can she technically take college level classes if I
Yes.
pay for it?
Yes, you can.
Just from the community, like, I don't feel like enough parents of 8th graders know that. And I just feel like that needs to be said so that way, because I would definitely do that. I'd rather have my daughter, I'd rather pay and have it be a college level class and then get her on the road, you know.
And yes, and usually that would be something that we would emphasize in our freshman orientation when we would have everyone come here. So that is something that I'll make sure when it comes to scheduling time, that the counselors make sure that the 8th grade parents know and students know. Because yes, they can start off as freshmen taking some classes for OCC, and then by the time they leave here, they could also have an associate's degree. So that's something they can do better.
I just feel like there needs to be more out there for the parents, because I just don't feel like enough of them know it.
And that, it is in the program of study, so that's part of us getting information out there, where to go to look at it, but it is in the program of studies, so I'll make sure that the middle school parents know.
Thank you.
I just wanted to compliment you really quick on the AP boot camp idea, because having a child that has taken a plethora of AP classes, I mean, one freshman year, now she's up to 4 her junior year right now, and she did the same thing. This is awesome that she wished she had that freshman year. I think that really could benefit a lot of kids, so they know what they're getting themselves into. They can prepare themselves, and I think it's a great idea.
Thank you. That's Ms. Tifo's baby here, the AP boot camp.
Excellent.
Especially since we've been trying to get more kids taking at least one AP course. So it is a different type of course with the rigor and high expectations that they need to be introduced to it in an intensive program.
Is there any prices, because it says that the kiln, that you can't, there's attached prices without school discount?
Yes, our art department made a request, but they made a request to kind of to fix it, but it's old. And what they were requesting would be just as much money to purchase a new one. So they are actively working on getting me a quote for a new one.
Yeah, initially, we were estimating somewhere around $4,000 to replace the kiln.
My other question is this baby grand piano for $29,000?
Yeah.
That's why it's a special request.
Yes, that's kind of on the wish list. So we'll take us some time to get that.
Have they explored other types of pianos? Does it have to be a baby grand, or could it be like a stand-up piano that's maybe $5,000 or $8,000?
Mr. Weaver did give me several different quotes, and that was the lowest quote. Yeah, the lowest. One was for $50-something thousand.
But he only wants a baby grand. It has to be baby grand. It can't be any other.
Yeah, well, because he searched around, he said that was the lowest, so we're just going to have to take our time and take a look at it. Because they're expensive.
I think part of what he considers also is the life. If you're going to invest in something, the life of the piano for a stand-up, you know, versus a baby grand, and depending the brand you buy, if you're thinking longevity, what's going to get you more time for more bang for your buck, if you will.
Our piano here is older, and so we will have to do something at some point.
It's a Steinway, which is probably the best piano you could get, and it's been here since the building opened.
I'm sure Mr. Lorenz is find some money.
I support the arts, but that just, looking at that number, seems very,
Yes,
very...
it's very scary, yes, when I saw it, I had the same reaction.
That is one thing, just band equipment in general is typically not on the cheaper side, but yeah, we'll see what we can, obviously we'll see what we can do. We're exploring options, but again, this is not in the budget at this time.
Mr. Lorenz, can you get very creative and write that up in the CARES money?
Probably not. Probably not. Hey, if I could, I would try.
Well, then you'd be inmate number or whatever. Perhaps I could do it.
What is the restorative justice program?
So it's really restorative practices, and that's something that we are investigating now. It is to reduce the suspension rate and to keep kids in the classroom, and also to address if there's any disparity with any race, ethnicity, so far as getting this done.
How is your behavior this year? I know I was reading a study the other day in New Jersey that behavior problems and suspensions and stuff are like an all-time low.
All-time low. I would say really, it's amazing.
It's a catatonic.
Yes, really, we don't haven't encountered much discipline at all. A few things online, but really not much at all.
Not near as much as we usually have.
No, not even close.
I think like I said, the survey for the state that's on that was saying that it's been remarkable.
Absolutely.
And they were saying it's not a healthy thing.
It's very quiet in the hallways, actually. It's very, very quiet.
Do you have a lot of kids that want to come back for the 4-day once it's offered?
We do. We have a good portion of kids that want to come back.
Good.
We'd like to be a little bit more normal. Thank you.
Thank you.
Curriculum.
Are you going to forget regional?
I thought you have regional.
Oh, I'm sorry, my apologies. My apologies. Before these get started, for our new board members who may not be familiar with Regional Day School, Regional Day School is actually a whole separate school district that we operate on behalf of the state of New Jersey. It's its own budget. It's not funded by our taxpayers. It's funded by school districts that send their children there. It's a program I think we've been running since the early 80s. And essentially the benefit we get from running the program is we can offset some of our administrative costs and some of our other costs through that program, because obviously we have a responsibility. Holly, myself, Dave, we do a considerable amount of work down at that program as well, so we're able to shift some of that cost out of our regular school budget into the regional high school budget. But if you haven't seen it, it's a great program. I'll let Lisa tell you a little bit.
Thank you, Frank. Good evening, Mr. Trethewey, Mr. Lorenzen, Mr. Pate, members of the Board of Education. It's my pleasure to speak to you tonight about the Regional Day School's proposed budget. First, I want to say thank you. I'm usually the last person to go, so it's an early night. Second, I don't know if Mr. Adams left, but I had an idea about the piano. You can tie it into music therapy under the Esl umbrella. So our proposed budget, as Ms. Lorenzen said, we are unique in many ways. We are not supported by the district. Our tuition we collect from districts funds our program. The proposed budget for the upcoming school year, we'd like to continue our therapeutic and academic-rich programs for students ages 3 to 21 with moderate to significant disabilities. We also offer a 6-week extended school year program. A large part of our budget is salary and benefits. The next area is instructional supplies. Teachers and related service providers order adaptive equipment, instructional materials, and consumable supplies necessary for instruction, as well as activities of daily living. There is no proposed increase in staffing for the upcoming year. We have 10 programs, our preschool disability program, and I thank you for supporting that endeavor. It was a risk, but 3 years later it is thriving and growing. We have a preschool disabled program, 1 autism, 2 emotional regulation impairment programs, and 6 multiple disabilities programs. A large portion of our program, our budget focuses on pre-vocational skills, workplace readiness to help students ages 16 and older reach their post-secondary goals. One of our goals and our expansions is our technology. We've had very antiquated equipment. We've been replacing our equipment each year, and I thank you for your support with that. Last year, we added 5 Promethean boards to our building, and they are just a dynamic learning tool. It affords all of our students an opportunity to interact with the internet and support instruction. I'm looking to add 3 more for the upcoming school year. This year, we expanded our programs. We offer iReady in both language arts and math, and also learning A to Z. We have 29 paraprofessionals in our building to support students, and our facility is top-notch. It's the best it's looked in many years. It's very unique that we are a state building on county property. The Department of Ed is looking to replace our HVAC air tails, and just very small projects. The last few years we've replaced kitchens and made multiple upgrades. We're just looking to replace some concrete curbing. We do have a request for a canvas sail shade for our preschool tot lot. It's very hot out there. We have students with medical needs, and they do need some shade covering for them.
Now, how many students are you projecting for next year?
We are projecting 60. We held steady all year at 60. We've been on the lose one, gain one, but we've been holding steady at 60 students, and that's what we're projecting for next year.
Graduates this year?
We have only one graduate this upcoming year.
How many kids do you have in the preschool program?
Right now, we have 4.
Do you anticipate new preschoolers, or is it all depends on how, I guess?
We work on a rolling admissions process, so we're constantly getting intakes, tours. We've been doing a lot of virtual tours this year, considering the pandemic. We also send pre-recorded videos out to districts. We're always looking for ways to increase our enrollment. At last month's Ocean County Directors meeting, I spoke about our programs and highlighted them. We send out brochures. Under more normal circumstances, we'll have open houses and invite families and districts to come take a look at our programs.
And it says for emotional regulation impairment, you only have 2 classes of that pod, or
Right now, we have 2 classes, yes. We have a middle school and a high school age class.
you don't have any elementary emotional impairment students?
Yes, we do, but they might be in a multiple disabilities program, they might be in a different program. But we have two classes.
Well, it's interesting, we always have which you have to be one of the few regional, to have the woodshop process. That's something that I know a lot of people come in and see that, and they're kind of amazed at what they do.
Yes, and our workshop teaching instructor has been very creative, a lot of more STEM activities. He's just individual items we can't necessarily use the shop, and he's traveling into the classrooms for different activities. And it's really a hallmark of our program.
Right.
Toy
Very
giveaway.
unique, very unique.
And one of the other things too, just to note, I want to say now, maybe it might be a year and a half ago, our Ed Foundation had donated $15,000 to Regional Day School to create a STEM room or something like that. But because of the pandemic, we really haven't had a chance to do that. So that is also something that once we kind of get back to normal, we'll be taking a look at.
How many of your kids are remote only?
About a third of our population, almost 20 students. We're increasing. We've had a few students return. We are open full-time, regular schedule, 8:45 to 2:45. We do have some students that come in just for their related services, OT, PT, speech, and then receive their academic virtually. We can be flexible.
But you do have a significant amount coming in.
Yes, yeah. We're 2/3 in person,
Great.
which is great.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. On
And
behalf
for
of
the new board members, any students from Manchester that we send there, we pay tuition just like every other district.
Correct.
yes.
And one of the things too, is, I mean, the program over the last 2 years has done extremely well. A huge part of that is because of the preschool program that Lisa brought to our attention back then. The program was, when I got here, the program probably had 105 kids in it. And over the years, especially that one year in 10-11 where there were major cuts throughout the state, districts started pulling kids back. But we've managed to kind of level out, and adding the preschool program made a huge difference. So with the additional funding coming in, we're able now, like Lisa said, we are able to do a little bit more down there with the program because we can't take money from this budget and put it down there. So that budget has to support itself. So over the past couple of years, we've been able to do that, and now we're starting to bring more technology down there. And we're bringing back our music program and some of those things that we lost when we dropped some enrollment. So I just want to say they're doing a great job down there. If you ever have a chance to go visit the program, go visit it. It'll change it. You walk out of there, I don't even know how to express how you feel when you walk out of the building. Yeah.
I describe your program as a family, not a program. It's such a special place.
Yeah, I always refer to it as a regional high school family, and that's really what it is. We have very low turnover, very dedicated staff, teachers. Everybody generally wants to be there. They generally care about the kids.
And one of the other things that's kind of unique is because it's a public school program, they don't list our regional day school with any of the private school programs. Every year private school programs come out, the tuitions come out, there's a list by county where the schools are. We don't show up on those lists, so these guys have to, hit the pavement and when we were open, they were having, things going, events at the school to bring people in, while doing the virtual tours is great, nothing is better than coming into the building and seeing it for themselves. So hopefully we can get back to that a little bit. next year, but they're doing a great job.
I think the percentage of people who visit actually go there.
Yes, large percentage. Yes. And just to dovetail what Craig was saying is, years ago, students started coming to us at 16, 17 years old because high schools didn't have pre-vocational skills or have life skills programs at the upper grades. So we tended to get those students. But now with the preschool program, we're getting them at 3, 4, 5. The longevity is there. So we're only graduating 1 or 2 as opposed to 10 years ago, we were graduating 14, 15 students.
It's a constant battle.
Makes a big difference.
That's a credit to you because you stuck. It was a leap of faith. We had no students.
Yeah.
Put a program together.
Yeah, we had no students, and by the end of the year, we had 11.
Yes.
If you build it, they will come.
Yes.
They do want to just say.
One question.
Well, first, our son spent some time at Preschool today. It was an amazing program. My only question is, on the list of staff, it says counselor art therapist with 0. Is that a program that's no longer part of?
Yeah, we don't have an art therapy program, but we have a full-time psychologist. And the art therapist did a lot of counseling.
Okay.
Thank you. And again, if you have not been to the building, I cordially invite you for a tour. If you haven't been in a few years, come on back and see the improvements we've made.
I still have a piece from the wood shop. Like, for me, that's a beautiful thing that's like on our mantle. So he remembers that.
We've had parents of students come and say, I made that, I saw that. And I got that when I was in kindergarten. It's really cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, now, Chris.
All right, why don't we take like a 10-minute break?
Sure.
Stretch your legs, go to the bathroom,
Sure.
that kind of stuff. Yeah. And then reconvene at 8 o'clock.
Sure. Okay.
All right, what do you think? So we'll pause for 10 minutes, we'll be back at 8 o'clock. Start again. All right. curriculum. Mr. Joseph?
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity for us to present the curriculum department budget. We thank you so much for your support, as our colleagues have shared. I would like to begin with some highlights, an overview of the implementation of some of the programs that you allowed us to purchase for this year, and some of the professional development that we had provided to support those programs. I'm going to try not to be repetitive, but I do know that at the elementary level it was shared that we had purchased the iReady for K and 1 for math. And as we shared before, that is not easy to implement a brand new program, especially during these times. But our teachers and our students have done a tremendous job of working with the program, implementing it with quite a lot of fidelity and consistency. And of course, we have gotten tremendous support from the company Curriculum Associates to be able to make sure that the teachers are guided during the implementation process and to be able to get answers to questions. As you probably know, every time you implement a new program, pacing does become an issue, and that has been a challenge with the math program, even for the implementation last year of grades 2 through 5. I will say that the PD support has been tremendous to be able to guide the teachers on how to continue, how to create pacing guides. Mrs. Nickel has worked with the teachers in order to generate those pacing guides, to be able to have conversation about the prerequisite skills that are needed and how to proceed with that. In terms of the middle school, Mrs. Driver did speak about the Study Sync program. With your support, we were able to implement that this year. That is a comprehensive program. It allows us to have an online component that includes diagnostic assessments. We also included a lot of PD. Most recently, February 24th, the staff was given PD by the company, and it has been going very well. At the high school, we did ask for a big purchase, which was a new high school math book. That is the Big Ideas program, which is actually the program that we're going to be recommending tonight for the middle school. The program has a lot of great components, some great enhancements. We actually have been working with the company very closely for PD, and Mrs. Moore has also implemented PD for the last 2 to 3 years, both with Educational Resource Group, Big Ideas Mathematics, and Dennis Shearing, who most recently provided PD on mathematical practices, mathematical mindset, working on developing assessments. You also heard that we purchased some programs that would support our ESL students. I have ESL information here for you. As you know, I was formerly the principal of Ridgeway School, and at that time we did not have quite as many ESL students as we have now. We have had, in the past year and a half, tremendous growth. Our numbers actually doubled throughout the district. Currently, we have 53 students, K to 12 ESL, and I can tell you that the languages primarily are Spanish, but there are other languages in there as well. The one thing I want you to understand is that we were fortunate last year to be able to give the access test, which is the ESL assessment. We gave it right before, and we actually shipped it out, ironically, right, Mrs. Saraceno? Right before the pandemic had hit. And so our access testing was already in the WIDA warehouse. They did not score that. We did not get that information back until September. The reason I'm saying that to you is because we were in a little bit of a holding pattern in terms of what we were going to do with our ESL students, in terms of exiting them, keeping them in the program. We had spoken at length that we felt it was in the students' best interest, regardless of what the assessment shown, to keep them in the program and allow them to continue in their current setting. So the numbers that I gave you are 52 students. We probably would have had about 10 to 12 students that would have exited based upon access scores, but we just did not feel that that was the right thing to do. I'll also give you a little information about this year's access test. Mrs. Mount, you probably know this firsthand. Brick and I, we had scheduled to have the access test done the second week that the period allowed us to test initially, and we were told by the Department of Ed that we cannot test in that window. It had to be moved back to be after April 5th and to wait for more guidance. So that's what we're currently doing at this time. We're in a holding pattern in terms of how we will be assessing the students that are currently in our program.
When did they say they'll get those results back?
Well, the thing is that, Mr. Pate, we were all ready to go. We had gotten guidance, so we don't really even know when they're going to open the window up. All we've been told is that we cannot schedule the assessment prior to April 5th. We are certainly looking for guidance to see how they're going to proceed. And then once they give us that information, they usually give us when we would expect to get that information back. And then, of course, the question is, if we don't get that information back in time, how would we exit our students? The difference with access testing is there's no other way to exit a student from an ESL program without that score. So they're waiving a lot of the requirements for a lot of the other assessments, including graduation for the assessment piece, but that has not been what we have been told would be happening for ESL. We may be, and that is something definitely we've been looking at and considering. I will thank the board. Based upon your approval last year, we were able to bring in another ESL teacher. We went from 3 ESL teachers to 4. We actually have 2 of those teachers housed at the Ridgeway School because that is where we have the highest number right now. We obviously are continuing to look at our needs and figure out if there needs to be any changes or certainly any recommendations to Mr. Treadwell. All the students do come to Ridgeway. No, and we spoke about the possibility of probably splitting the program or looking at that. The problem is that it really isn't feasible because of the way the clusters are and the way the kids, sometimes if we would, take that, the other thing is, once you go over 20 students in one language, you have to give what's considered either a high intensity or sheltered instruction program. We actually give high intensity, so that what that means is we're giving double period, and by giving double period of ESL to our students, 2 periods, we wouldn't be able to do that at 2 schools for all grade levels. It just wouldn't be something we could do, and we did discuss maybe doing K1 and 2, 4 and 5, but the problem is you could potentially be splitting up families, and it still wouldn't be something that we would be able to effectively do with the staff that we have.
How many languages do we have to do the high intensity, just one?
The high intensity is only for Spanish. However, I will say to you, the recommendation has been from the teachers and also from Mrs. Mazer and Dr. Saraceno that we try to give as much as we can to all of our students currently, because we're seeing that many of them are coming as SLIFE students. They don't have a lot of formal instruction from the countries that they're coming from, so it seems to serve them well. The foundations, the reason why we include them in our trainings, the ESL teachers, is because it really allows them to give a double dose, it allows them to give multisensory. The one teacher that we were fortunate enough to hire came from another district. She was already certified in foundations. She had taught the ESL students there through using the foundations program, and she is very, very pleased with the gains that the students are making. Usually the K-1s, they're like sponges. They seem to pick up the language acquisition a lot more readily than sometimes the older students, like the high school students. But we are putting programs in place there also. To your point, we are putting the System 44 there for the students. We have the Rosetta Stone, and we also are using, for those particular students, the Achieve, if applicable.
Are we getting close to the 20 number in any other language, or they're all?
No, we are not. We were watching those numbers for perhaps actually at one point we were looking at the Russian, but that doesn't seem to be the case anymore. It primarily is Spanish. We do have a few Russian students. We have Tagalog, we have Urdu, and we have one student that speaks Swahili.
You don't have any Albanian? No, because I know a lot of districts around here have a huge Albanian population.
We do not.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot. How dare me forget? We have an Italian student. I'm sorry, Mom.
Knowing the difficult position, that's why we did put the ELL kids in 5 days a week. So that has helped.
Yes, and that has been tremendously helpful by having them here the 5 days a week, allowing them to be here with the teachers. That Wednesday is very, very pivotal because they're getting even more than what they would get in a traditional type of program. They're with that ESL teacher for constant support throughout the day. Thank you for that point. I forgot that, Mr. Treasurer. So in terms of just what we've done and what we've implemented, we thank you so much for your support. Our PD, I have to say, my team is tremendous in coordinating professional development every year, but this year they have really done a stellar job in targeting the PD that we're providing. Mrs. Moore has done so much as making sure that we're looking at the surveys as they come in and then tailoring the next session for the next PD. Dr. Severance is great in doing that. She looks at the PD surveys with us. She looks at how she can tailor it. So as Mrs. Driver spoke to you before, we started with SEL. We spoke about student engagement. We really felt that the teachers were asking, like, what data points are available, and that came out of the needs assessment, and that's what she did with our staff today. In terms of our budget, I'll speak to our requests as not only from the curriculum department, but in conjunction with our principals and the committees that we have. I would like to really sincerely thank you for what you have done to support us for summer curriculum writing. I know we ask you for quite a bit of money, but I will tell you that because we had a QSAC year, I can emphatically say how that put us in such a great position. Our curriculum, when it was reviewed by the county office, is just really exceptional. They were very impressed that we used the new template. They were pleased to see that we pulled out for all the different subgroups. They were great in terms of seeing our pacing guides. We included all the timelines. So we had all the components that are required for the curriculum. As you can see, I did put in your packet a chart so that you could see that in there are newly adopted standards, which means that there's going to be a lot of curriculum writing. I am not as concerned about the 2021 curriculum writing, but we are extremely concerned about the 2022 because the reality is that it's grade bands changing for social studies, and you can see that the tech is changing to design, thinking, and computer science. With that in mind, we certainly have science curriculums that need to be updated for September 2021. We have visual and performing arts, we have world language, and we have career readiness, life skills, and key skills that is necessary and needed. I do want the board to understand that when we ask for curriculum writing, even this past summer, we're always working towards implementing these standards. So when we're rewriting math curriculum, we're including and infusing some of the practices that we have here for career readiness, life literacies, and key skills so that we don't have to go back. And so we're being very careful and conscientious about the way we're asking the board for money. I don't know, are there any questions about what I presented for summer curriculum? Of course, that also includes ESL screening. It also includes review of access material. I put that in there because in a typical summer, we would have our access scores back by then, and we would be looking at that and analyzing it. Of course, that could change if we don't have our scores back in time, but I did budget for that.
What's the screener that you use for ESL?
Okay, so for ESL, we use the WIDA screener.
What is it called?
WIDA. So it is the WIDA screener. It is the required screener. For kindergarten, we're able to use the WAPT, but actually that's changing to also using a screener through WIDA as well. Our teachers are certified on that. They need to be recertified this year going into next school year. And then of course our teachers need to be certified every other year to give the access test. In terms of what we are asking, I do include in my budget items that are for title grants. So you can see that we're asking for some coaching for Wilson, for BSI, that actually hopefully would be something that I would include in Title I. We've done that in years past, but I wanted the board to be aware of that. We also are asking for training for the math program. We're currently going into next year, year 2, for grades 1 and 2. and then we would be going into year 3 for grades 2 through 5. You also heard before that we're asking for Geode Readers, which are for grade 1. Those readers are actually readers that are purchased to enhance what we're doing in K1 and 2. Right now, we're asking the board to allow us to purchase those decodable readers for first grade. We've had conversation with our teachers about the pieces that we're missing. I know that there's been a lot of conversation about, the reading series and that why don't we have a reading series? To be very honest with you, the reason we have really spoken with our teachers and really brought them in is because we wanted to know what are the missing components and what do you still need. And the one thing they did say emphatically was that they needed decodables. That is the one piece that's missing. We're teaching Wilson and that they feel that it's extremely effective. However, the thing that's missing is the decodables to reinforce, to go back. And so we're asking the board, and it is a big expense, for grade 1 decodables. Those are on grade level, so those would be for first grade students. Of course, it's produced by another company. The company is Great Minds, but they did it in conjunction with Wilson. The other thing I wanted to say is that we did speak about iReady quite a bit. Some districts actually use iReady as their standalone program, almost like a reading series. We don't do that because we don't say it in that way because we just don't feel it's enough. You need to be able to pull from other places, and that's the one thing that we felt was missing. So by giving these decodables, we feel that in the lower grades, they would be able to circle back, have those reinforcements, and to be able to provide those for the students. The other thing we were talking about was providing novel sets, classroom, library novel sets. We do have some novels, but we don't have them any continuity or consistency. So what we're asking for is in 3rd grade, Fantastic Mr. Fox, Tales of 4th Grade Nothing, Where the Mountain and the Moon Meets, and these were generated by our staff. And you can see that we're asking for classroom sets for grades 3, 4, and 5.
I think the children and the teachers will definitely thank you for that, and the families, because novels are a critical part of development.
You're absolutely right, and I do think that we've been doing a lot of discussions about book talks and how we can actually get kids more interested and do some chats and discussions in the classroom. And we think that it will help us to be able to develop critical thinking skills for our students. They'll be able to, have deeper conversations, have more discourse. So our goal would be to ask, obviously, for more as the years continue, but that's where we're asking right now.
I have a question about the geodes.
Sure.
As you are aware, it's very expensive, and you're only asking for it for first grade for this year. What if it's a flop?
We really feel that we've been researching them enough that we feel that we're hopeful that it won't be, and that you could always use those decodables to spiral back for anything. We actually were hoping that we could possibly even consider the other grades if there was any kinds of money available through the CARES or whatnot. You're absolutely right, the cost is expensive, but we've done a lot of discussion about some of the other readers. I will tell you in years past, Mrs. Mount, when we had another program, the decodables that we had that came along with it, they just weren't the quality, they weren't aligned. That's the big problem. They're expensive, but they're aligned to the foundations. So if we're continuing with foundations and we're purchasing the kits and we provided all this PD, and the teachers really feel that they're seeing gains, and we see that, the data is supporting that, then the problem is that we have teachers pulling from all different places to be able to align to what they're teaching. The fact that this company has worked hand in hand with Wilson, we really think it will be very successful, and that's why we're recommending it and asking you for the purchase.
So you kind of just alluded to my next question. You said teachers are pulling from bits and pieces. So would this ensure that if a child is at MTES, they're reading the same thing as the child at Ridgeway, and the teachers are not scrambling trying to find the materials?
Yes, I'd like to answer both parts of your question. So the first question you asked me is, how do you know? So, funny thing, and I don't know if Mrs. Waldron is still here, but the teachers at MTES were concerned about the cost of the geodes. So they went with another particular decodable series. They actually felt that it still didn't allow them the benefit of being able to have that alignment. So they were pleased to hear that we were looking at the geodes, because the reality was they were still in the same predicament, still having to pull. I believe they use Spire, am I right?
Yeah, we've looked at several different decodable reader companies over the past few years. We've purchased Primary Phonics, we've purchased some Spire readers, we use the decodables through Learning A to Z to try to build in the application of Foundations instruction. Geodes is kind of like the Cadillac of the decodables that are out there when you're speaking of Foundations. It's completely aligned. It has the trick words built in. It is 80% decodable. They're authentic literature, so it actually teaches them science and social studies concepts. It takes them through art. It will give, I think it comes with 364 books per classroom. So the kids will see the color version, and then they'll also get their own book that can be taken back and forth from home. So it's direct application of the skills that they're learning within Foundations.
Now, the other part of your question was, would it be the same? Like, would they be reading the same things? It would depend upon where they are in terms of the pacing, where they are in terms of the Foundations program. But typically, yes, you're right. Some kids could be seeing the same things that they're seeing at MTS, that they're seeing at Ridgeway, that they're seeing at Whiting.
And it's tier 1 instruction, so it's all kids. And it can support.
It can support tier 2 and tier 3 as
It
well.
can support tier 2 and tier 3, where the teachers can then pull it into small group. But essentially, it would be everybody reading the same decodable text, and then the teachers can support or extend in small group.
If this was to be approved, would the set be able to be used again for the following first grade year?
Yes.
Or would it have to be repurchased each year?
No, it would be a one-time cost. It would be a classroom purchase. So this would be for all first grade classrooms.
So then, when those kids go to second grade after they have geodes?
So next year, I would be asking you for second grade.
It's a costly purchase, so our thought was phase it in. And the teacher's thoughts really was first grade, because start with first grade, because that's the year when kids really become readers. So we thought that it would be important to put it in first grade first, and then our thought would be phase it into kindergarten and grade 2 after that.
And I can vouch for first grade being that way. Having spent this year in first grade being a 4th to 8th grade teacher, and knowing that was one of the most critical years.
There's the biggest reading growth in first
Yeah,
grade.
and Michelle, Diane, and I were actually talking the other day about the possibility of seeing if we could get kindergarten and grade 2 in as well. So we are trying to figure something out.
Thank you. You can also see that we included the licenses for the students, but that was built into the principal's budgets for iReady. The next item that I'd like to address is the math textbook for the middle school. You'll see that actually this was supposed to be a request that we were going to make last year. We actually decided to wait a year because we didn't feel comfortable presenting to the board a program at that time. We were investigating multiple programs, and there was one program that Mrs. Moore and the committee were considering that was still in like a beta version. We did look at that program this year, and the teachers have decided that they'd like to continue with the current program that they have, which is the Big Ideas program. Now, the reason we're continuing that is twofold. It's a new program, it's enhanced, there's a lot more digital aspects to it, and the current program that we have, we'd be purchasing one-year licenses to continue, and we just don't know when that would phase out. We did that last year to get us through this year so that we would be able to spend a little bit more time, look and see, investigate all the programs, and they are very comfortable with the Big Ideas program. As you probably are all aware, our math scores at the middle school are fantastic. And I attribute that really to the instruction that goes on, but also their use of the materials. And so we're asking the board to please consider the purchase of textbooks for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade for math for 6-year license for the current school year. At the high school, you'll see that there are multiple requests for AP books. We have AP US, AP Psych, and we're also asking for AP European. The reason we're asking for that is, first of all, some of those books are extremely outdated. We need them updated. Of course, AP Central has advised that we need to be looking at more current types of books that are aligned to the assessments and the course description. So we are asking for the purchase of those books. We actually work very closely with the high school just in order to see a rough number of what we would need. And so, you know, we gave a little bit of a buffer, but not much of a buffer. The next book that we're asking for is an art book, and that art book is for all levels. The one thing that the teachers do not have is a book that actually has a digital component to it. So this art book would allow for that. It also would allow the kids to be able to see advanced art techniques. So that's another request that we have there. We also have 3 books that we're asking for our science department. As you can see, all 3 of those books are no longer in print. They're very old and outdated. If we get larger classes, we can't even obtain copies to make sure that we have a class set. So we're asking for anatomy and physiology, we're asking for biology, and we're asking for environmental science. The one thing that the environmental science book that we currently have now does not have an online component, and the new book will have that. The teachers worked as a committee. They complete a rubric selection. They really felt that that book in particular would be an excellent choice for the particular course, and the online component was an added feature. Are there any questions about the books? So then I'll talk a little bit about staff development. You'll see in my budget that once again I'm asking for the Global Compliance Network. This has become very, very handy for us. It's a way to get the mandated PD to all of our staff. The other thing is that, you know, I'm much more of a hands-on person. I sometimes prefer PD that's live, but the nice thing about having a tutorial like this is that I could go back and review it at a later time. I also could, you know, you look at it at my leisure when I would like to. We've actually been able to use it even for the new pieces that they added for COVID, so we included that as a component there as well. You can see it's extremely, it's $1,400. It's a very reasonable program, and it really did help us when we were CUSAC this year, because when they ask you about monitoring and they ask you, has so-and-so viewed this and has so-and-so viewed that, we're able to pull a report, and we're able to say, yes, they did, here's the date, here's the log time, here's their certificate. The other thing that we're asking for is to continue, obviously, with our Wilson coaching. We cycle through. This year we're doing coaching for K and 1. Next year we're asking for grade 2, as well as our BSI teachers, as I've already shared with you. We're also including sensitivity training. We have, really, she is a remarkable woman. BJ Franks and Barbara Tedesco. If you go to any of the ESL trainings or anything through the DOE, they are the gurus of ESL, and Dr. Saraceno is very fortunate to get them. She does have to book them a year out in advance. So they're coming this year. She booked them last year, and the best date that we could get them is March 31st. I will tell you that last year when we did the training, we did it rather late. We did it rather late, and then the year before as well, we did it very late. But the teachers were so pleased with that training, because sometimes you get training in June and you're like, what am I supposed to do with this now? It's June. But the reality was they really were so excited, and they were able to use that information to plan for the next year, work on study groups during the summer, so we're thrilled to have them back. In addition to that, we actually were allowed to go to a training in BRIC. Dr. Anderson actually invited us to go to a training done by Dr. Daniels, Robert Daniels, and it was on cultural sensitivity. It was fantastic, it was very timely. We felt that she really was able to tailor the training for what we need here in Manchester. And so we're hoping that we can have her come next year, do an introductory and some follow-up training. The other big request that I do have in the budget is for some science professional development. My hope is that we could use Title IV funding. I never know what kind of money I'm going to get in my title accounts, but we were able to do a lot of the STEAM training, able to do some of the SEL training. This year we were able to do the mathematical practice training by using Title IV funding. So Mrs. Moore has put in a request to use Open SciEd for next year. As you know, we're trying to get the teachers prepared for the New Jersey Student Learning Science Standards, and since they're going to be implemented in September, we really want to be able to coach them and guide them, and we feel that that particular company will be able to do that. They actually have a platform that we will be using, so they would be a sole source provider. They're the only ones that actually could really provide that, and it is a little bit of an expense, but we certainly feel that it would be ongoing, sustained training, and it would kind of go along with what we had done in years past with the BER training for science with the next gen science standards.
Mr. Joseph, what's Title IV?
Title IV is actually, it's the newer version of the Eisenhower grant. What it actually is it's money that they give to school districts for SEL, for STEM, for STEAM. It also includes some technology components there as well. It's a tricky grant to write because a lot of districts actually move that money into Title II because the way it's set up, it's like 15% is your tech, and then a certain amount of money is used for PD, and then a certain amount of money is used for some, and there's so many formulas for it. But I will tell you, my staff and I, we really work very closely with the Department of Ed to try to figure it out and to be able to use that money to benefit our kids. In years past, I used to use that money to purchase iReady Diagnostic. The woman from the state said, absolutely fine, it was the tech component, we were able to do that. The thing is that now that we're moving some of that money into either local funds or into CARES money, I just have to be careful about how do we proceed when we don't have that money, because we don't want to have an issue with supplanting. STEM and STEAM are very much a big part of that. Mental health is a part of that as well. That's why we use the SEL component. You know, trying to think of what else have we used it for in the past. Yeah, mostly PD to support STEM and STEAM. And then, as I did say before, it's really looking for a mental health component. You're welcome.
Will there be Geode training? Would that be built into the program money, or is it a self-explanatory thing that the teachers can pick their stuff out of the box and they don't really need to be trained on?
Great question. So we actually will be using the training from the Wilson coaches to help them to implement and build in the geodes. And of course, we have our supervisor, Mrs. Nickel, who will be doing quite a lot of training in terms of making sure that the teachers feel comfortable in
It
using
does
them.
come with a 3-hour introductory training, and it comes with a teacher's manual, and there's videos to support the teachers as well.
Now, the teachers are aware that you want to move forward with geodes. Now, did you talk with all the teachers or just the first grade? Because obviously, your goal would be that it would impact possibly kindergarten, possibly second grade, maybe even fourth grade.
Yeah, we've been talking about these for some time now with the teachers, because over the past few years, we've been trying to purchase other decodable readers to support. The geodes was always just, it was a little bit more costly, so we were trying to go with other routes first. We've definitely talked to all the first grade teachers. We've included basic skills and special ed teachers in the big conversation this school year, but we've been talking to all K-2 teachers for the past couple years about them.
Now, will this go beyond second grade, or is this just for like the lower elementary?
These are just specific to K-2.
Hence why we're asking for novels for 3 through 5. And then obviously 3 through 5 also has that reading coach book, that consumable for them in particular. So we're trying to make sure that we're looking at the grade levels and giving them specifically what they're asking and what they need to support the program.
Now, has there been any you guys are doing with having the fifth graders switch classes for math and language arts. So since when they go to sixth grade and they have textbook, has there been any thought into how that would benefit our fifth grade and upper elementary?
So that Ready Reading book is actually semi-like a textbook. It has all the texts in there that are on grade level, and it has a whole routine to it. So the students are involved in close reading routines. It has writing response to text. It has a text that goes with the mini lesson for the whole group. It also has a guided practice text, and it has an independent practice text. So that book really serves as our textbook for on grade level. Everybody reads the same text. And then through our workshop model, the teachers are able to then, in small group guided reading or literature circles, that's when they pull in their level readers, novels. A lot of our teachers do novels in small groups that are level. And then through our Daily 5 is where independent practice goes, and that's where we build in learning A to Z activities. A lot of the Ready Reading can go into that Daily 5 independent practice as well. So that program is built into the building level budget, and that's a costly purpose. But that essentially serves as our textbook for grades 2 through 5, actually.
We actually received a phone call recently from another director of curriculum to speak about the Ready Reading, and they were inquiring about purchasing it as their series. The Curriculum Associates is also looking into doing what's called a magnetic reading program. Michelle can probably speak to it a little bit more.
Yeah, the Ready Reading program that we have had for the past 3 years is actually being enhanced to become, it's called magnetic reading next year. So they've really taken a lot of, and put a lot of enhancements in the sense that the diagnostic is just our assessment platform. The students will take that diagnostic, it'll give them a report on prerequisite skills or where students end up, and then it will point them into the magnetic reading book to offer differentiated support as well as the Toolbox that's online. But they really enhanced their text to be more culturally responsive, provide more supports for scaffolding, a lot of routines for comprehension that have been enhanced. So there's a lot of really great enhancements that we feel really good about coming next year for our 3rd and 5th.
And they provide, as they do PD that we pay for, they provide a lot of free PD. So our teachers, and actually I've been going to a lot of the trainings on equity in education, how to use scaffold learning for all students using the Ready Reading data. So we feel that it is really comprehensive, but we also look at the data, and the data looks really, really promising. Even based upon what we are going through right now, we see tremendous strides in our reading at each school, at each level. So we feel like, we're doing a really great job, and the teachers are really, really invested. They really do like that consumable, because as Mrs. Nichols shared with you, it allows them to have some kind of anchor and then to move off from there. The novels will be a nice enhancement to what they have, because it will allow for more conversation, it will allow them to get deeper critical thinking, allow the kids to have more discourse built into the reading period. But our model is really based upon balanced literacy, and we've been doing a lot of conversations and speaking with the teachers about a lot of the research, what does it say. I've also been talking to a lot of districts about, what are you using, where are you moving towards, what are you doing? And many of the districts are really doing a Readers Writers Workshop model, which is what we're trying to do here. They're also really saying that if you want to foster a love of reading, you got to put a lot of different variety in kids' hands. And we don't know that, providing a series will be able to do that for us. I've been here for a long time, and when I was a principal at Ridgeway, and we initially had a series, the concern was that there wasn't enough phonics instruction, and the readings that came along with it were not rich, were not deep. Hence, then we go and we create a committee, and the committee really went into, let's look at, a phonics program. We initially did not go with Wilson because of cost, and we went with another program. And then years later, we ended up asking the board for Wilson. So I want you to understand, when we ask the board, we put a lot of time into this. We understand it's a lot of money. We get a lot of input, but sometimes I also think about, it's not always better to go with the most reasonable program, because look at what has happened in the past. We ended up asking for a program, and then we came back to the board within 5 years or 4 years, and we said, we need a different program. The other key piece to that is the PD. When we purchased that program, we didn't really implement a strong PD component, and so the teachers, that program happens to be very well used in Sayreville. They're a model for RTI. Mr. Lukerson and the supervisors and I, we actually called Old Bridge and Sayreville, and we spoke to them about their RTI model. They use that particular program, but they found great success probably because, one, they may have a different demographic than us. They also provided a lot more training. We're seeing that for the most part, the Wilson training has been very, very important to our teachers, have given them a lot of confidence, especially during these times when you're talking about pacing. Where are we going to get by the end of the year? The coach has been fantastic about guiding people specifically where they are and letting them know it's okay that you're here. I'm seeing that in other districts. That's where you need to be. Continue to go through methodically, take your time. So I hope I answered your question. Thank you. Are there any other questions for us? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mendoza. Thank you, Chairman.
Sure, there's no need to have
You next? Are you next?
No,
No?
unfortunately. 3 or 4. Got Christmas next, and then it's transportation.
Thank you all. Thank you all for coming here tonight to present the budget for the upcoming school year. Obviously, you guys know this has been a challenging year, not just in technology. It's been a huge shift of paradigm from what we've seen on a typical day-to-day basis in the technology field in education. We're lucky enough that over the last 7 years, Manchester kind of made a priority in educational technology. They've made a push to get devices into students' hands, purchase programs, really do their due diligence and investigate what's needed from an educational technology standpoint. And then when the pandemic happened last year, we were kind of ahead of the leg. We started the year and we said, how can we get these devices to the kids? So we decided to implement a one-to-one since we had the devices on hand already. This year was our second of 3 years in which we had to replace devices. We had 1,200 devices that were replaced. We added an additional 300 for our staff. So prior to the start of September, we implemented 3,000 devices out to students and staff, which was a huge task for the department. But we got through it, and thanks to your support allowing us to get these devices to our students' hands, because this is where we have to go remote only. It was a huge increase to be able to use this tech at home and in school. We thought it was important for our staff to have the capability to annotate, to communicate, have multiple cameras, microphones, so they can teach in the class in a blended environment. And the next step is going to be what's going to happen now once our students are back. How do we keep the technology in line? How do we teach in a blended environment, not in a virtual environment? And that's kind of what we're leaning on now. The assistance of distance learning has brought much new softwares to aid our teachers and students to work remotely and help to bridge the gap of learning delay, which is caused during the spring pandemic. Obviously, the spring was a challenge on its own. Once September started, we kind of hit the ground running. We went on full virtual. We did a blended environment with students in 5 days a week, and I think we did a pretty good job. Another challenge the district saw and faced was some issues with our network. We had a very strong net. We have a very strong network. We're very lucky Mr. Lorenzen supports any kind of cyber issues that we have. He's really been ahead of the ballgame, allowing us to have a managed security company on staff that provide a certified InfoSec security person is a huge task, and I don't know if any district in the state has that. So to kind of combat that is to have a managed security company manage the firewall, look at the logs on a minute-by-minute basis to make sure that an attack doesn't happen. And Mr. Memphis allowed us to do that. We have to subscribe to content filters that are COPA compliant. We use a cloud-based system, and we were kind of lucky that we had a cloud-based system because it allows us to send our Chromebooks home, and our kids have secure internet connection. They're not accessing whatever they want. With that, we did have an incident where our students were basically locked out. Our staff was, and we issued a DDoS. We suffered a DDoS incident, which was basically shutting down our internet. With that, we had an increase of cost to our internet service provider to help us subscribe to a service, which is going to be impacting our previous budget. Under this upcoming budget, we're going to have to subscribe to the service going forward. It's not a huge cost for the district, but I think it's a service that's going to keep us up with these blended environments and virtual environments. Who knows what the future is going to bring? It'll keep us up on our internet connected. We won't have these incidents going forward. In preparing for the 21-22 budget, I kind of decided, hey, let's look at a long-range forecast, break it down into two categories. What needs to be replaced? Our devices and our infrastructure. What areas are important versus other areas are not important. So looking at a device count, we said what devices that need to be replaced on the staff that are older than 5 years. We've kind of gotten away that devices really they could last more than 5 years. We were seeing devices around 8 years last, which is a very good basic technology with these machines because they're not being used on a level where you're not doing high-end graphics, that type of stuff. So from a basic feature standpoint, those machines were capable. Now when you're adding video conferencing, you're adding day-to-day stuff that's doing blended in virtual environment, these machines need to be upgraded. So we're up to close to 200 classroom computers that need to be upgraded for this upcoming school year. Also, too, we have about 1,100 Chromebooks left that need to be replaced in our third year of the cycle. Starting with this devices would be the last one. The next time we would have to upgrade Chromebooks would be 2025. So that gives us a couple of years where we don't have to replace any student devices, other than devices that are broken. And we're fixing all those in the house now. We have devices under warranty for a year. After that, it's on us to replace any kind of physical damage, anything hardware related that's happening. We just order the parts and we fix it in house. We've been very lucky with devices going back and forth. We've had under 5% of our devices being broken. And most of the devices that we see have issues or like software related, stuff that we can fix in house. So, we kind of farm devices that are physically broken. We'll take the parts and blend together, or if we have a supply of parts that we need to order, we do that as well. The next step of kind of evaluating what needs to be replaced, when a lot of this tech was built in and it was implemented, obviously it's done at once. But how does the district incur all those costs? When it comes to forward, how do we renew all that software and that hardware? So there's some key components of physical hardware that needs to be replaced. Our firewall, which is probably the most important, especially this day and age. We want to make sure that we're compliant. We want to make sure our data is protected, and we want to make sure that we have access to the internet. So we're looking to replace our firewall, which is a cost of the district. Now we do have money that's allocated with E-rate. We have a 60% cost ratio with E-rate, so E-rate pays 60% of the firewall, we pay 40%. Same with goes for any kind of level 2 E-rate component. That includes switches, that includes firewalls. So that we kind of can evaluate what's E-rateable, and we have a total of $300,000 that can be spent on E-rate money. So if we spend $300,000, we're going to spend 40% of what that costs. So typical firewall is going to run around $25,000, so we pay about 40% of that. Same would go for our router, our main router in district, which kind of connects all of our buildings together. That's actually end of life and end of support starting in October. So we have to replace that. We can't get any kind of parts for it. We can't get any support if something happens in the middle of the day. Right now, it's a 4-hour support. And actually, not this year, but last year, we had a power supply melt in it. Just because of how testing that product was. We had a product shipped to us in 2 hours, door to door in the Parker Place, which is pretty incredible, I thought, from support-wise. So we're looking to replace the firewall, our core router, and some school gateway switches. The switches, actually it's been kind of since our third year we've been doing this. These devices connect kind of our client classrooms. So a lot of our physical connections that are plugged into the wall, these are 10-100 switches. We replaced some switches this year, and we'll be replacing some next year that were installed in 2001. When I looked at it, I pulled out the switches and I saw the tag. I was like, holy moly, these switches were installed when I was in high school, and they're still functioning in our environment. Just to show how the life of it and how well they've done. So it's not it's just not a cost we have to do all the time. We don't have to spend this kind of money. But 20 years, I think, of a life cycle, that's pretty incredible. It's about 10 years is about the average. There's some other stuff outlined, such as our access points, which are long range and be replaced in the next 3 years. Some voice equipment for our phones, and then Mr. Lennon said we're looking to expand maybe our phones into our other buildings. Currently, our high school has phones in our classrooms for security reasons. So now we're hoping to implement that into other buildings. We have actually single wire application, which can send e-alerts out. If someone dials 911, we can actually see where they came from, get alert into the classroom. And as far as our district tech budget, there's things on here like our backups. We have a redundant backup system, which, sorry guys, this mask is. We have a redundant backup system, which we have an on-site backup, which protects our data, and we also have a cloud-based backup if there's a catastrophe. This is very important to make sure that we're compliant. We don't get any ransomware. We're protected. Our data is protected. It's encrypted. So we currently subscribe on a yearly basis to these applications, looking for another year renewal. We also have our Genesis information, our student and our staff backed up in 2 cloud backups because that data is important. It's a lot of personal information. So Genesis backs that up on a monthly basis as well as we do into our cloud system. We are looking to implement a new system this year due to the increase of tech issues that we have had. We've seen a huge demand, and thank you for your support. We actually hired a new staff member in my department just because of the influx of tickets. So we're looking to implement a new ticketing system, which will kind of give us some good data, allow us to actually kind of hold out what's, maybe this device is breaking, we'll know, so it lets us see some trends, allows us to kind of associate technology into physical space. So I can say room 100 actually has a Chromebook, allows this projector. Then that person gets tagged from our student information system, so it allows us to say, hey, Mrs. Smith is having a problem, she can put a ticket in, and it automatically knows what technology has assigned to her. So this is going to be a one-time cost this year, and then after that, it's going to be reducing cost for what that ticketing software is going to cost. We're going to be replacing some switches at Regional Day School in Ridgeway. Those are the E-rate switches I talked about. Like I said, we have $295,000 available in E-rate money. I anticipate that to the district it's going to cost around $10,000 when those bids come back. Typically on a year-to-year basis, we budget around $25,000 for technology and server upgrades. This year we're keeping in line with that pretty well. Even with the increased cost of the Chromebook replacement of parts, like I said, we have about 5% of our devices actually need to be replaced and managed and repaired. We have a mobile device plan for our department that's included in my budget and some remote software. One thing we kind of are building out in the building levels is PaperCut MF, which is a software that allows to kind of centralize print and scan to our copiers. With the implementation of all the kids having Chromebooks, I'm hoping that printing the consumables can go down, it should go down, but this PaperCut software will allow us to kind of visually see, compare, and then really track our printing. We can set quotas for staff and students. It also allows the ability for our students and staff to print mobile from their devices. So they could say, I want to print. They can go to any copier in the building, scan their badge, put a code in, and then have that document retrieved. So we don't have a staff of students printing 100 copies at a copier. So it really allows to save paper and toner. With that also, we're looking at some softwares that we kind of, Mrs. Pedrosa's team talked about. Edpuzzle, which is it's a software basically that allows our staff to create video content. Or actually not even create video content. They can share video content that's already published on YouTube or any kind of site. add questions, they can really check students are watching the videos, they can introduce students to self-paced learning with interactive video lessons, and it's easy to narration and add questions to. With the printing, we're also actually hoping that the introduction of CAMI, which we kind of pushed out this year, which is an interactive document software, so it allows our teachers to take PDF documents and allows them to make fillable forms online, so the students that can share out, they fill this out in a Chromebook, and don't have to worry about printing it out, and we have 30 papers back. So this has been a huge piece of software for us this year. Along with that is Snap and Read, which is a similar software we have. Between the combination of both of those softwares, it allows us to kind of really make a digital platform for our staff and students. The difference between Snap and Read and CAMI, I think they both are important in their own aspects, because Snap and Read allows to have a read aloud better comprehension for our special ed students. So basically they can highlight text and have that read to them so they can really comprehend what's in their readings. And also too allows them to take notes on PDF images, and even if they're not, English is not their primary language, they can have it translated for them, so they can highlight text and just have it translated to their native language, which is huge for our Esl population. And also too, if difficult words are getting in the way, it's a click a button, it kind of explains it, and actually will break down the sentence for them. We are kind of evaluating right now with this virtual space, and where do we go for next year? If we're not on back, we are back, so we're kind of evaluating, do we go Google, do we go Zoom? So we're evaluating both products. We actually do have both products this year. We were hoping to have our feet in with Google, but they didn't implement some of the software right off the way, so we kind of went in with Zoom. So we actually have a kind of a split environment. Some teachers are using Zoom, some teachers are using Google. They both have their advantages, in my opinion. I think Zoom is a little more collegiate, high school level, and then Google Workspace, obviously, they have features like breakout rooms, attendance, so they both have their advantage. And I'm a big Google guy. I've been a Google guy since 2010, so they've always been my push, and I feel it's important. And now their integration for the Workspace for Education, which is kind of like an enterprise license, allows us to see some security information. Basically, they've added on features like DLP, which is data loss prevention. So, I can't have like a CST member share out an IEP to somebody who's not in their network, so I can kind of see visibly what's going on behind the scenes with their docs and stuff. So I think that kind of license is important. And then Rosetta Stone, Systems 44, and Achieve 3000 purchase with CARES. And those were kind of what we're looking at on an upgrade we're keeping for next year. Does that have any questions?
Number one, I want to say,
Go ahead. Do we currently have Google Suite, like the whole thing?
Yeah, we do. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
first I want to say you're doing an awesome job. I don't know how you do it, keeping up with all this technology and all these programs, so kudos to you. Are the kids going to keep their Chromebooks or whatever device they have through the summer? Or are we going to collect them?
My goal, I'm still in discussion, I'm still kind of figuring this out, but I think I would like to have them pulled back for the summer, but we'll make official word of it once we get a little closer into spring.
Okay, and if you choose not to, are you going to cancel the hotspots and stuff for the people who are getting?
That's a good question. We're probably going to continue. I'll talk to Ms. Lenz on how we want to proceed with the hotspots because they were CARES grants. They were CARES grants that were used for those.
Yeah, we purchased it through CARES, and I think we purchased the 12-month license.
Yeah, so it was a 12-month license we bought for those devices, so for those hotspots. So if we need to continue service, it's something we'll evaluate.
Okay, and then did you guys ever find out who was hacking into the system?
No, it's going to be a final needle in a haystack, unfortunately, because it's not actually in our network. It's in the Comcast network that's actually getting attacked. So looking at the reports, there were over like 2,000 connections coming from overseas. So someone's using a VPN or paying us outside service to do this. So it's impossible to find. The feds don't even, they can't even trace it, so.
A nice part of it is with the new programming software that we were able to.
Yeah. So it's funny. It actually hasn't happened within probably the last week. We were seeing it when we implemented it, probably for about 2 weeks after the fact, and we didn't see any downtime during that mitigation, which was good. So over the last 7 days, we haven't been down once as far as mitigation service happening. So I think kind of it's a disease, and my guess is it probably was a student messing around, probably. We can't really prove that, but that's probably what I would suggest.
We currently do not have a ticketing system at all, right?
We do. We have it's some freeware ticketing system we have, so it just doesn't really give us much as far as visibility of what's happening. So.
Is the volume really high?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, especially this year. I think the first day this year we sold over 500 tickets, which.
I think I've opened like 10 or something.
Yeah, we probably have, with projectors and devices, we probably have over 5,000 devices.
Oh, easy, yeah.
At least.
Yeah, we're very lucky. Every classroom has a projector, has a computer or two, and now every device, it has a Chromebook, and every kid has a Chromebook. So there's a lot of pluses in sure. Now, and even last year we forgot to mention kindergarten implemented iPads. So our pre-Ks have kindergartens on hand, so they can iPads on hand, so they can use that in a middle environment versus the Chromebook, because the dexterity is not as big to use those devices.
Is the long-term plan to stay with this one-to-one technology?
I'm sorry.
Is the long-term plan to stay with this one-to-one technology, or is it to?
Yeah, I mean, I don't see going back at this rate. I think with all these programs we're implementing, I think it would be disheartening to the district to do that. But it's something we'll have to evaluate as far as, looking at cost. If next year all of a sudden we're spending $100,000 in fixing devices, that's something that we have to discuss.
You said the device repair, I guess on behalf of the child, is low?
Yes. And we've really only seen a handful of devices that have actually physically been broken by an intention. So there's been 2 devices that have been broken intentionally.
Do the parents have to financially be responsible?
They do.
for it? They do.
Yeah.
If everyone signed an agreement at the beginning of the year with the back to school paperwork, and like I said, there's only 2 parents that's should be charged because their kids stabbed a pen through the screen or teared off the keys. So most of the stuff we're fixing in house, that's all of a sudden they accidentally dropped the device. That stuff's going to happen. We understand that.
That's different than the pen through the screen.
Yeah. Although I did have one parent. This is pretty funny. They spilled some water, I guess, or something in the device. And they tried to fix it themselves. They took it apart, but they soaked it in rice. It didn't fix it, so.
Watching too many commercials.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
That's so cool. Commercial.
Love that.
Michelle.
Michelle's there.
Okay.
Good job, Chris.
Having me here tonight to present my transportation budget to you. First, I'm going to start off with my fleet. Right now, the fleet consists of 39 54 passenger buses, 20 minibuses, and 2 vans. This year, we did purchase 5 new buses. We have 2 54 passenger buses, 2 24 passenger minibuses, and we did finally get our 1 large mini multiple wheelchair bus for regional day, which will be able to do other field trips next year. Okay, so maintenance and repairs have dropped slightly due to the purchase of new buses. Due to our law changes, we have kept our buses for 15 years. We have a handful of older buses left, and with them we do have slightly repair costs. Fuel stays consistent every year, and it's slightly higher in the winter months due to the additives to prevent freezing. Mileage is half of what we had. We're down to 521,000 miles, and usually we're over 900,000 miles. So hopefully next year we'll be back to normal.
Is the cost of your fuel going up now? I feel like my truck is a lot higher now.
It's a lot higher now.
Yeah, so is that expected to hit us hard? I would expect that to hit us hard, right?
Yeah, with us doing less miles, we're not seeing savings, but it's not costing us more than next year if the price stays where it is. That could be it.
And we're in a co-op with fuel costs, right?
Yes.
Oh, and I did forget one, I'm sorry.
No, I mean, the one good thing about being in the co-op is obviously we're exempt from federal, state tax, things like that. So what you're seeing at the pump at a Wawa is not, we're probably paying 50, 60 cents less a gallon. So.
But I'm also getting 30 miles a gallon when you're getting 6.
Yeah.
Well, but that's always been the case.
It's diesel. Also, I did forget to say next year we will not be looking to purchase any new vehicles. Okay, out of districts. Excuse me?
We won't need to purchase the buses next year. The following year.
It'll be the following year, so we're set for next year. Okay, out of districts. This year we usually pick up our displaced students. We do try to squeeze in some
out of district schools. We could not do that this year due to the scheduling changes for our district, lack of drivers. So next year, I would imagine, hopefully, if everything's going well, we're back to normal, we'll be able to take them back. We do offer parent contracts. This year we do have 2. They usually range from $40,000 or more per year, but we do pay the parent, it's $12,500, so that's savings right there. Aid in the lieu. Aid in lieu now, there's been more students attending the non-public schools, and from what I've been seeing this year coming in, March is the deadline for the following year, there has been an increase in V6Ps. So,
How about our neighbors that are transitioning over to students that are private schools?
yeah, it seems like we've had more an increase in the non-public.
Probably others, we're having a big influx of students that will be going to male and female private schools.
Yes. Yes, that's
Like
becoming.
my mom.
I have a question about aid in lieu. What is like the mileage limit, like how far would we provide transportation for a private school?
It's 20 miles.
Can we decrease it?
No, that's state. That's state. That's state law, yeah. So, salaries are due to up to a yearly increase. We currently have 45 contracted drivers, 18 contracted aides. We did also raise the salary this year for sub-drivers, hoping to get more applicants, which we haven't yet. Today?
Somebody came in and asked if we were hiring them.
Oh, they came to you?
Yeah.
Oh, they should, you sent them over to me?
We did.
Oh, I didn't see that.
I walked them.
Yeah, we still have a few sub-drivers now that are training, that we're training them to get their CDL. So hopefully we hang on to them. I also did have a few people resign today for next year.
Yeah.
Okay, software, this year we're going to be using TransFinder. We usually use the VersaTrans. So hopefully we'll have a better year routing software. Our DRTRS, we've been using VersaTrans and we had multiple problems with VersaTrans, and especially with DRTS, which is our funding. So.
And it's nice part compatible to your Genesis, right, which is a big help for us.
Yeah, and that's about it. Also, I did want you all to know about the transportation department, our drivers, our aides, our mechanics, the staff, they all stepped up this year. It was a very difficult year, and they all stepped up to make us successful this year.
I will say they've done an excellent job.
They have.
I know they don't work as long, but everything is condensed, and they're constantly going.
Condensed, so.
They have actually done a very good
Yes.
job.
I agree.
Are the drivers feeling safe with the elementary kids now attending school?
Some are, some are, you know, I had that handful, and then, you know, we make them spray after each run. It's the same procedures, whether you have 20 kids or 40 kids on your bus. It's the same procedures that they have to do. We know there's no social distancing. They have to make sure that the kids are wearing their face masks. So.
Has that been an issue?
You know, the elementary schools now, it's more so the older students. It's the middle school and the high school students that we have more of an issue with. But the little ones are doing well. And that's really where we have the kids on the bus too. The majority of the kids on the bus are.
Yeah, we did meet with the drivers and the reps, and they had very little concern. We'll go over after this week and see if there's anything else.
Yeah.
I think it started well.
In the beginning of the year, they handed out packets, the chemicals that they'll be using on the buses, what's, you know, in the sprays they're using. You know, they have masks, they have, the hardest thing is to spray the buses after each run, because they have to wait a minute or two for them to dry before we get other students back on the bus. But everything's been working. As I said, it's been a difficult year, and it's been working.
And at the end of the day, you have the mechanics do the...
And the mechanics at the end of the day use the spray, and that just covers the whole bus.
Are we currently transporting students going to like religious private schools within that 20-mile radius?
I do St. Joe's because St. Joe's has the highest attendance. We do have 3 buses going to St. Joe's.
Okay.
Other schools we can, if there's 1 or 2 kids, I can't take a bus and send them out, 20 miles away to transport these kids.
How many do we need to have in order to?
We have quite a few non-public schools. So there is no way, we could do that. We don't have the manpower to do that. It's actually cheaper to give them. It's $1,000 a month.
Yeah.
A year, per child. So it's actually cheaper to do it that way. Unless I have a full bus like St. Joe's.
Right.
So. Anything else?
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you.
Facilities. I'm just saying it could be a little cooler.
Good evening, everybody. You all probably have in your package what we've done over the past year, and so I want to touch on that a little bit, like things we did at the high school, replacing carpet and guidance and lighting upgrades, and we painted locker room ceilings. The reason I want to talk about those is that was done in-house. We didn't have to hire anybody to do it. Everybody stepped up. We've got a great crew here at the high school. We bought them an airless paint sprayer and a dry fall paint. They did all the locker rooms. That saved us about $16,000 from going out and paying prevailing wage. It's amazing what this crew and the whole district has come together in the towns that we're finding everybody has. They're helping us with a lot of stuff from putting up cameras, like I said, the light fixtures. Our plumber ripped out the kitchen floor, put a new sewer line in. The only thing we didn't do was put the new kitchen walls up. We had a contractor come and put FRP up, which unfortunately no one gets to see because cafeteria closed. But next year they'll be happy. At the middle school, the new meeting room started. We're on schedule for this May. That'll be complete. Everything's going really well over there. We fenced all our playgrounds in completely this year, so now we're secure. We are to shut them down again. We can lock them up, and we can do that on the weekends if need be. If there's a piece of equipment broken, we can shut them down and people can't get in. We renovated nurses' offices in Ridgeway. Bottle filling stations are all over the district now. We only have a couple more to go, and they're actually arriving tomorrow. They got very hard to get during this pandemic. We replaced a lot of ceiling tiles. We did 4 hallways in Ridgeway. We did classrooms in every building. Did some more flooring, and our bipolar ionization devices went in every rooftop unit, every air handler, which is helping with indoor air quality. And previous to this even happening, we had put UV light systems in all the nurses' offices ductwork. So we were a little bit ahead of the game on that. And I have to thank the whole staff. The custodial staff's been amazing this year. They've all stepped up. They didn't skip a beat with all the new stuff they have to do. And now the desk shields are up. It's even more of a challenge. I was walking around tonight talking to them, but they're getting in the swing of it. It's definitely going to be a challenge to clean all that every night, but nobody's complaining. They're just doing what they got to do.
I will say, Chris, we had 2 weeks off at MTS where the students had because of the COVID, they had 2 weeks off. You guys did so much work there. They took a lot of pride in what they were doing. I stopped them, they said, oh, we're getting some summer work done.
Yeah, every time we close down,
2 weeks go by.
the students are back this summer. And last year was the first summer I've ever seen in my career that we actually didn't have students running around. It was an eerie feeling. But we got a lot done.
They got a lot done in that 2-week period where the students weren't in.
Yeah, we did a lot of heating repiping. They painted. They did so much work over at MTS. It was amazing. This year coming up, there's a lot of work to do though. Still going. For instance, out here at the high school, the track needs to be resurfaced and repaired. Tennis courts, they're in dire need too with cracking going on, but they're at the 10-year point, which you need to do that every 10 years approximately to keep them up to par. We're looking at the press box here, continue with the exterior lighting. That's one thing we've been doing in-house. All the lighting upgrades that we do are in-house. We're about a third of the way done outside, and everything's going LED. We did another 120 fixtures in the high school, just in the hallways and classrooms, to LED fixtures. And by doing that, it cost us $10,000, but we got $7,000 back from New Jersey Smart Start. So our payback happens a lot quicker by doing it in-house. They also re-roofed the snack shack out here, the ticket booth, and the spirit shack, and that's all done in-house. We're going to continue with upgrading our fire panels. The fire panels, most of them are upgraded to addressable now. Now we can start putting devices in, so if an alarm goes off or there's a trouble, we know exactly where it is, what classroom, what hallway. It'll tell you exactly where everything is. We're going to continue with our concrete repairs. The 2 restrooms outside of the new conference room at the middle school, they're going to be completely demoed over summer and redone, but that'll be done in-house also. Of course, there's a little flooring left at Ridgeway. In the hallways, the carpeting still has to go. All the classrooms in the district now have been re-floored, no more carpet. It's a lot cleaner. And that all helps towards indoor air quality also. With any kind of spills, you get mold and this and that. And especially now, indoor air quality is like at a premium. We got doors and windows. Hopefully, under the new CARES Act, some of that can be taken care of. There is a little line item in here so you can repair and replace. We're going to try and get those funds that way so it doesn't come out of our general fund. Let's see what else we got. We do have an upgrade to our VAS system for the district that controls all our HVAC. That's coming due. We're looking at that right now, and it's also going to include a cybersecurity end to it. As you all know, and Chris spoke of what happened with the other stuff, that's also an entry point that people can come in and try and hack the district. And it's also going to be, it's a federal requirement coming up if you have a VAS system, you have to have cybersecurity in it. We're also going to be installing washers and dryers at every building, so we switched to microfiber rags for cleaning, and this way we can wash them and dry them instead of shipping them over here to the high school as we do now to clean them. And they can do the floor mops and everything. It just makes it more efficient, and you get a better quality product that's going to last a lot longer. Any questions?
You and your crew do a great job, thank you.
Thank you.
And I will say, I want to just kind of talk what Chris was talking about. Some of the guys we have, we set up, we started our own in-house maintenance department a few years ago. It was one of those things where we were outsourcing it, and the guys we had weren't great, and they were doing things the wrong way. And eventually, we decided to bring it in-house, and what we found was they took more responsibility because they were our staff, they're in our buildings. But these guys, like Chris said, do an outstanding job. We have somebody who does plumbing, somebody does electrical, somebody does HVAC. Chris is HVAC certified, so we have somebody just about in every area of specialty. So we've been able to keep a lot of this work in-house, including the trainer's room, and things like that. So we have actually been able to get probably twice as much more done as we would contracting that out. And then the other thing it does is it keeps the money, keeps the money in the district. We're not paying some service or some other company. We're paying our guys to do it. So it's just a better use of how we spend our money. And obviously, just like you guys have your homes, the work's never done, like Chris said. As much as we've done, there's always plenty more to do. So these guys, everybody, our grounds crew, maintenance guys, custodial staff, they're all doing a tremendous job.
And they all work well together. They can, sometimes the maintenance guys take custodians to help them, and vice versa. And it's all working out well.
I think the supervisor does a good job too. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Wilkerson.
I've had my 2 shots.
Yeah, is that right? Second one worked out okay?
the lady says, listen, at your age, you better really watch for these reactions. And I said, well, I've got 597 sick days. So she just looked at me and shook her head, like all these guys do. So you guys all know that the greatest part of my budget is out-of-district placements. And I just want you all to know that COVID has changed everything, right? You all agree, completely. And despite COVID changing everything, our student philosophy continues to exist. Students first. The IEP teams know that I don't want them to worry about numbers. You worry about what you should be doing for that individual child. And to my knowledge, they're doing that very well. I also think you know that none of our IEPs are being implemented completely. You know, not one of them. Okay, but we're going by what the federal government said. They said, you know, to the greatest extent possible. So that's exactly what we're doing. So Mr. Trethaway has challenged us to try to figure out ways we give compensatory services sometime at the end of this year and then in the summer months. So we're working on that right now. This year, on our October 15th count, we had an additional 32 students. Okay? Kind of unusual, I think, but then when you think about all of the problems that parents are seeing with their children at home, you can see where there would be the potential for additional referrals. Not sure if that would have happened without COVID, but it certainly has changed those items. Historically, out of districts, we go from 32 to about 52. We were at 52 maybe 8 or 10 years ago, I think. We brought the autism children back in, we leveled it off, probably between 32 to 42 over the last few years. And of course, now we're up about, if we take our half-time kids at this moment, we're up about 48 or 49. What's so unusual about this year? We had 7 move-ins. Sometimes we don't get 7 move-ins in a 2-year period, a 3-year period. This year, we had 7 move-ins in September, which was absolutely amazing. So, you know, when we have a move-in, you know, we keep them in the regular placement, then we have a 30-day review to figure out if that placement was appropriate, and 9 out of 10 times, they were very appropriate. Just to give you a little bit of information where our increases are, and they were in the preschool population. And in the past 2 years, I've said to you that according to the American Medical Association, 30% of our preemie children end up with an IQ of 80 or below. So 2 years ago, I said to you all, so expect to see an increase in our preschool disabilities program. Well, the latest research says that for every week early that a child is, it reduces their IQ by 1.26 points. The average amount being 13 points down from the average. Okay, they also say that 16% of those kids will be intellectually disabled. So the point being, you know, we're going to continue to see, you know, additional preschool kids. So what happens with us is we have a pretty good preschool program, but they're half day. So what we need to do in some circumstances is to utilize Lisa's program, and we send our children over there, okay, for ages 4 and 5, and then when they turn 5, they are coming back. So we have the potential of seeing a couple of those children coming back, but we still have these pretty heavy referrals coming in regarding the preschool, but thank goodness Lisa has that.
Who determines that a preschool child should have a full day versus the 2.5 hours being suitable for him or her?
Pardon me, who makes that decision?
Yeah, who determines that they need
The child study team.
Okay.
Yeah, the child study team. And that's a difficult one, you know. I think you all know, even with your own children, I really didn't want my kids to go all day as preschool kids. I just thought it was too long. But then you have some of these medically fragile children. They really need that additional half a day. Now, keep in mind that when they turn 5, our intentions are to bring them back. And I think we have a couple coming back after this particular year, right, Liz? The other area that you have to take a look at is the other end. We are keeping more of our students after age 18 through 21. Our responsibilities go until age 21 if it's appropriate. So we have 6 or 8 kids out of district that are remaining until age 21. Now, this year, we have one graduating from our district, from regional day school, okay, and we have one student graduating from the deaf ed program in Neptune that, believe it or not, we're trying to talk her into staying, okay, because we think she's going out too early, which is kind of, counter to what, we want to do with our out of districts. But it's kids first, and it's the right thing to do for those children. So think about the preschoolers and that, and then with 7 move-ins, that kind of explains why we're at 48, 49, or whatever. But the bottom line is it's not ending, and you'll probably see some more things happening. For example, about a month or 2 ago, you guys saw that we moved a student that was placed in social services out of district, had a very serious problem, had to move his placement. Okay, but he was already out of district. Well, we just had one of our students, okay, who was placed out of the home, okay, and we're going to have to pick up their educational cost on that, which you may see at the next board meeting. And then I got, another student who was placed in a different facility, but also was in an out-of-district placement, okay, that you'll be seeing that change. It's not an additional child going into it. It's just that they are changing places. So as you know, I also sent 14 students to regional day school. One interesting thing was we were talking about behaviors before, the reduction. Lisa, I believe you've only had one crisis, one CPI this year. That is incredible. I mean, as opposed to having, several a week?
Yes.
Just one this year. So that's another big difference when we're talking about our behaviors. So the other area that I take a look at, besides what Nick will say, and I'll address that in a second, is related to our ED population at Ed Academy. At Ed Academy right now, I think we have 7 kids. Okay, one of those students is going out of the middle school level and will be coming back into our district. That brings us down to 6. 2 of the kids are at the middle school level. Okay, so even if we brought those 2 kids back, I'm not going to recommend elevating the class of 2 kids. So then we look at there's 4 kids left. Okay, we have 3 4th graders and 1 5th grader. Okay, so that's good. We could probably cluster those kids. However, guys, there's an independent variable. There's several independent variables that take place when making those decisions. So without getting specific because of the Needless Public Labeling Act, there are children who are very physically aggressive and has assaulted staff in the past. Okay, I'm not going to bring those kids back in to a group 4 where a couple of those kids are very physically assaulted. Because what happens, and Nick knows this, we would be calling home, right, Nick?
Yes.
Every 2 or 3 days and saying, pick up your child. And that's just not a good thing for parents. It's not a good thing for our school. It's not a good thing for our school environment. So at this time, I would not recommend doing anything with those 4 kids. However, you don't close the door on it. Okay, it's something that we can possibly look at next year. However, one of those 4 may come back this year, which would bring us down to 3. See, normally I say, no, I'm not going to go, if it's only 3 kids, I'm not going to bring kids back for a class, but if it's 4 kids, I might consider it. In this particular case, one of those kids may come back. They're doing really well. That brings us down to 3, but then we have the physically assaultive problems. And then I can rely on principals such as Nikki to really take a look at what's going on. What Nick's recommending is that 3rd program, 3rd self-contained program, which would take 2 programs that are completely full, okay, bring it down to something manageable, like about 5 or 6 kids each, which I think we would be much more successful, okay, and it would also stop possibilities of sending additional children out of district. Okay, so when you take a look at that whole piece, it's like the numbers are what they are, and because I work with 2 gentlemen that believe in kids first philosophy, I think that we are in relatively good shape. The only other 2 pieces of information, and I think you may have heard it from Lisa, it's no longer ED, okay, emotionally disturbed, it's emotional regulation disability. Guys, I happen to love that. There are so many parents out there that don't want to put a label on them that says emotionally disturbed. I can understand why, but it's going to be emotional regulation disability. And then the other update is that there's going to be a 3rd way that we will be able to identify our learning disabled children. And we're going to be sending some of our staff out, okay, and it's called Patterns of Strengths and Weaknesses, PSW model. They're being trained so that we can identify our SLD children earlier, because in the old model, they had to fail, you know, before you could give them services. Now with this new model, we can find out more about that at a much earlier age to try to satisfy those. Then the only thing, are there any questions on added districts? Go ahead.
I like, it's not really that, but I like Nikki's idea of bringing in.
Yeah.
But so you wrote LD or MD?
Yeah, no, we haven't decided yet. We've got to take a look at the population based on the recommendations of the child study team. Yeah, it's really kind of strange. Now, to be honest with you, sometimes I like LD because you can put more children in those classes. You go MD, it limits the number. But the LD and the MD is not what's important. It's the program that's being taught, and they've all got to be individualized anyway. But Nick, you and I will have to talk about the students who are going in there, because I have to get county approval to add a program, and I have to identify it and explain and describe what that program is going to
Do
be.
you have enough kids? Because I want to, is Ms. Stragerson here? I want to compliment Renee Strange at the middle school.
Yeah.
She has such a stellar reputation working
Yeah.
with the MD population.
Sure.
Like, are we good? Can we separate LLD versus MD, so that way, like the kids, my girlfriend's son is going to regional day for a partial day
Yeah.
program. He's MD.
That's coming up. Check. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. That's okay.
But just, that was my thought, like, I know you know that I'm big on BB and you explained yourself, but also like with MD, like wouldn't it be more important for a child with, say, Down syndrome and stuff, to learn more life skills than learning, say, the solar system?
Well, that's fine, but we also have to follow it's crazy, I can't explain it. State Department says we have to follow the same curriculum with the kids with their own chronological age. I mean, there's certain guidelines and goals that we have to establish, you know what I mean? And some parents say, oh, I want my MD child to go to an MD program. That's not necessarily the way it works. We have autism children that are mainstream, you know, we have other kids that are mainstream in different programs. We have MD kids who are going into regular classes. You know, that's the label that they have, but it's not the services that they need. Okay, so we'll have to make that decision as we work our way through. And in that particular case, and it may happen with some other students, in this particular case, the kid was going pretty much a half a day, right, Nick? And we believe, and the team believes, that sending him to regional day for the other part of that day would be a kid's first decision. And I think that's starting soon.
Yes.
Any other questions regarding? Go.
The ED kid that you're the ERD
Yeah.
that you're hoping to bring back.
Yeah.
Will there be a transition process?
Yeah.
Like, so it'll
Yeah.
be like
Good
partial
question.
day?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, what they do at Ed Academy, this is why I love them. They'll send them back for a period or two. Okay, then they send them back for a half a day. And if it is successful through Nancy Driver and Steve, it usually is successful, then they come back a whole day. But you know, those kids aren't going into a self-contained program. They're going into a regular support program, which I think is fantastic. Now, the one question they have right now, they have an 8th grader going out. He hasn't had an opportunity this year to bring him back slowly but surely. They're actually going to extend the responsibility, and he, as a brand new 9th grader, will be given the opportunity, if the team believes it's right, his parents believe it's right, that kind of a thing, to go there for the beginning of his freshman year and then come back 1 period, 2 periods, half a day, and then full day. So it's a great program that they have. And most of the kids who come back from that program actually go into the less restrictive environment, which we think is fantastic. Okay?
So I would never look to pull any kid out of a program, especially ED is an amazing, Ed Academy is an amazing program. My question is more about the kids that end up at Education Academy are really smart, they're behavioral, right? How many kids do we have that are still here to have behavior intervention plans, and how are we?
We have a lot of them.
How are we managing those plans? Like, I don't see in the, and it could be any regular budget, don't have that. Is there training to help make sure those behavior plans are followed, that those kids are manageable, that we don't continue to send kids out because we can't manage them?
Yeah, we have the BIPs, behavior improvement plans in place. We do functional behavioral assessments. We have contracted ABA people right now. Okay, when Mr. Treckaway and I interviewed an ABA person this year. As it turned out, it didn't work out, okay, but as it turned out, it was probably a good thing it didn't work out. I don't know what the heck she would be doing this year with a lack of behavior problems, you know. Now, that said, I think you all know that since 1995, I've been doing CPI training. I've actually done 525 hours worth of training with our students, and it's all related to de-escalation, how to keep things verbal as opposed to becoming physical. This year, we just finished regional day with 7 people. We trained, despite the challenges during COVID, we trained them this year. And Jill Moore is picking that training up. So we have a lot of things in place. So we have the functional behavioral assessments, we have the FIPS, we have the CPI training, and just taking that portion of it. So we're doing what we can. Now, despite that, I will tell you that right now at high school, we've got a huge physically handicapped child, and it's not her fault because, you know, of the category of disability that she falls into. She's a very large girl, and she it just has one of those disabilities that she can't control. And I know Dennis is seriously considering what to do with that particular situation. But it's again, we're doing whatever's best for those individual children. And Dave reminds me of that all the time. Anytime I bring up money, he reminds me, you know, that it's a kid's first philosophy. And I don't know how he does it, Craig, as far as, surprise, you have 7 move-ins, okay, maybe what, 50, 60, 70, $80,000 a piece. Not counting transportation, but we always seem to be able to do it to meet the needs of our kids.
Now that we're going to anticipate more social-emotional problems with the whole pandemic, do you offer the CPI training just to, like say, regional day or just the self-contained teachers, or can any staff member?
I've done hundreds. I've done hundreds of staff members for the last 25 years, not just from regional. It started at regional day because that's where people were getting injured, okay, but then it branched off. And many people have taken advantage of the CPI training. What was so remarkable to me is that they were doing it after school hours, you know, and the first training is 12 hours. And they would come, not get paid for it. And then each year after they got trained for 12 hours, then it's a 3-hour recertification process. You know, now, things have changed because now the State Department says we have to do this. We've been doing it for 25 years. 2 years ago, the State Department says now you have to do it. Now, with those people that we have to do it with, we're trying to do it in such a way as we do it within their hours. So the last training that we had, what, about 2:30 to 3:30-ish?
Yes.
We were doing within regional day schools hours, so they're not giving up their own time. So it's a complicated 5,000-piece jigsaw puzzle. That's what it is, you know. And then the only other thing is, you know, fortunately, I think, Chris, you just ordered 12 iPads, you know, and we have those in the bank in case our students need it. We always give them any technological device that they need, you know, and one just requested a stylus because he's got some OT issues and he was having a hard time on the computer. So we believe we're continuing to meet the needs of those individual students. Doesn't make it an easy job, but it's, I think we're going. So, any other questions?
Your last line, it says unpredictable requests such as additional technology just gave the OTPT needs, updated walkers and wheelchairs.
Yeah.
Are the updated walkers and wheelchairs going to be used for the physical therapist so that he or she has what they need?
Yes.
Or are we actually like, are you going to buy my child a wheelchair or a walker?
For school.
Just for school purposes?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just for school. And what happens usually is the PT and OT are involved in the measurement, the companies that come in and those things. Now, we don't have many of those, thank goodness, but we make it one of those every couple of years.
Yeah, we put funds in the budget every year because, you know, like Ollie said, there have been years when we've had to order some equipment that broke, or we had equipment on loan that we had to give back and replace it. So we put something in the budget every year just in case, but it's for here though.
When we use Lake Forest Elementary School as an out-of-district placement, do we get a discounted rate since we work?
Oh yeah, it's a public school now. See, here's what's interesting. Regional day school is considered public school. Shore Center is considered public school. We're using Tom's River right now. We're a child who moved in, but we're paying them to continue with their program because we get public school rates. You know, like 15 grand as opposed to $80,000. We're using Lakehurst in a situation because they have an appropriate program for a child at a much reduced rate than if we sent them into a special education facility. Yes?
In the last 2 years, there's been so much money on the table for preschool expansion. And I know that's really for Gen Ed too.
Yeah.
But like our preschool inclusion program is so small
Yeah.
and it is so amazing. Like I don't understand why we haven't taken any of that money or applied for any of those grants.
We have.
Or expanded it. Well, everyone else got the money. Like why did we, I was just curious, I'm like out of
Space is one thing.
space.
Yeah. Yeah, we don't have the space to bring all those kids in. I'd love to have a humongous preschool program, just don't have the space. And you do realize that some districts are shutting schools down. They're closing schools up. They have so much space. You know, we just don't have that
Yeah,
space.
Mr. Lopez and Mrs. DeBrey and I all went to a workshop with the DOE, and as we calculated, space-wise and staff, it just was not beneficial for us.
Several workshops.
Because like the earlier you intervene with these kids, like the less chance you have of having to send them out. Like when you, like I'm just giving, I have 2 kids, one didn't get services till he was 6. He spent 8 years at Education Academy. My little one, she has done amazing, done preschool since 3. She can stay, like she's successful.
I can say this, that 2 years ago, I don't know last year's statistic, but 18 of our preschool disabled children went into regular programs.
Yeah.
We're having a great deal of success,
Preschool
even under these circumstances, you know. But we went to these meetings. We would love to have additional inclusive
Our
preschool.
universe, we couldn't find the space for what our universe would be.
Yeah.
Right.
And there are schools that, you are absolutely right, there are districts that have been taking that money and been doing some great things with it. But I actually am friends with a person in Stafford who actually, they decided against that because they were having difficulty just with some of the requirements and what's needed. The district that I happen to live in, I know that they are using that money, but the problem is that then you compromise some of what's going on throughout the rest of the district. And what I mean by that is bigger class sizes, because the money is not earmarked for any additional locations. You can use it for enhancements, to put up walls, to change the structures of the classrooms with bathrooms,
you need a
do
lot
that.
of things.
But I think people thought that it was going to allow them to be able to put on additions or things like that. And when we went for those sessions, that is not what we were told. So we felt that we couldn't accommodate that request at the cost of what we currently have.
You know, I just mentioned this in the future, if there was a way we could do that if the needs keep going on.
We even went to, you know where the dollar store is in Lakers?
Yeah.
We went there, okay, to think about the possibility of revamping that dollar store to be house a preschool program.
Right.
We even had state members come down, and they were giving us plans on how to do it.
And initially, Ollie, right, initially, like when Lakehurst had done it, they were allowed to use relocatables. They were allowed to take money and put those relocatables there. We had gone and looked at it, Miss Nickel and all of us, we went there. They were amazing. They did not look like they were trailers. They actually looked like beautiful classrooms. But then they changed it when we were starting to think about applying that we couldn't do that because we have the space. We would have been willing to do that, but they had changed it so they were no longer allowed. And that was not an option for us.
But I think my recommendation would be keep moving forward, keep checking it out, see if there's any modifications that we can make to bring those kids in. And by the way, you know our statistics, sometimes our statistics look high. Pet peeve of mine, they include preschoolers in that statistic, but they don't include all of the other preschool kids that are in town that offset, like what percentage. So they just add the preschoolers to our numbers, and then our percentages look like they're high. The reality is they shouldn't do that. They should remove the preschool percentage, just calculate the numbers.
I have one more question, I
Yes.
guess that's it. So you talked about numbers, so 32 newly classified kids. Are you talking, is it mostly elementary, or are you getting a bunch of middle schoolers and high
No,
schools?
I think we might have had one referral this year that we didn't take at the high school. I think we've only had a couple at the middle school level. They're mostly elementaries, yes.
And is it mostly like they're truly like learning disabled, or is it more of the new emotional?
Other health impaired, learning disabled. We're not talking about autism or anything more serious.
So you're talking about like a resource kid, possibly like an
Yeah.
LD program?
Yeah. Absolutely. Any other questions? I see Mr. We're just so anxious over here.
No, thank you. I know a lot.
Thank you, guys.
And just to let you guys know too, we get about $3.5 million in funding for special ed through IDEA, through our state aid, through extraordinary aid, so that does help offset.
All right, big finish.
Okay, I'd now like to present my 62-page.
You have 62 pages, you're in there.
Good evening, everybody. And you'll see that I've highlighted some of the larger account items in my budget. I don't have a lot of discretionary money in my budget, but there are some larger expenses. The first of which is our vocational program, which this year is it's only up about 3% to just over $200,000. Which, just to give you a little bit of perspective, back in 2017-18, that was $125,000. So in the past few years, we have seen some large increases there from a tuition perspective, not from a numbers perspective. But that has kind of leveled off, which...
If you go back like 10, 12 years ago, it was nothing.
Yeah, it was nothing.
Yeah.
This is a part-time.
Yeah, I think when I got here, we were paying about $16,000 for part-time kids, and we weren't paying for. I'm sorry, we were paying that for full-time kids, and we weren't paying anything for part-time kids. Now we're paying over $200,000.
Another topic that came up a little bit before was home instruction. Obviously, this year the home instruction numbers are way down. I think we spent less than $1,000 in home instruction across the district, and those are all high school students. But in conversations throughout the process, we talked about, because this is definitely going to be one of the areas where we'll see some efficiency brought on by the change in the way we deliver instruction. So, but there will still continue to be kind of 3 levels of home instruction, if you will. If a student is hospitalized and expects to be in a hospital for a certain period of time, they will still receive those educational services in that setting. So that will continue to be in place. Now, if it's a situation where a student goes for maybe got their appendix out a couple of days, is back home, that student in the future could join the classes remotely and remove the need for a teacher to go out to the house or meet at the library and to kind of continue those services. But we're also seeing that home instruction, there will be a place for students who are experiencing, out of the ordinary situations, whether it be, medically based, for sure, obviously, but where a teacher will need to spend and the student will benefit from that one-on-one instruction. I think it's going to be greatly reduced, but I do think that we will see a need for that, in the future. And actually, we're seeing some of it towards the end of the year this year and I think it also came up, are we using different resources to deliver home instruction? While we're not using Apex or some of the other online, but I think our guidance department does a fantastic job of meeting the needs of each individual student and where they are academically and what the situation that's going on, how long might it be going on, and how can we meet their needs. So I think it will be something that we'll see reduce in the future, although we're kind of budgeting for numbers that we would typically see. But it will be a reduced number for sure moving forward as we benefit from the blended and the remote instruction, and exactly what that looks like is to be determined, but I think we'll still have those 3 levels, if you will, of home instruction.
Will teachers have the option to do it remotely or in person?
Yeah, I think so, yeah. And I think we'll probably be getting some guidance also in regards to what other changes from a regulatory perspective on home instruction. But and again, we've seen kids who are home because they might have had a knee surgery and they just want to join the class remotely, and that's been great. That's worked for everybody. We've also seen some kids with medical conditions that are requiring that a teacher still have that one-on-one individual time. So, but it'll be greatly reduced. So it'll be a benefit for sure. The mentoring program, which is kind of stabilized, and I think when you hear about the number of retirements in the district, I think our staff is kind of, you're seeing fewer teachers retiring. We're kind of more stable, if you will, in that respect. So I think based on the number of teachers that are retiring, the number of teachers who have entered the district in the last few years, that's probably a number that we'll be seeing going down. It's going to hold about steady. And then the last account is really the testing account, which at this point is really the PSAT and the SAT and the ACT at the high school. There was a time where we provided so much time carding for, when it was paper-based testing and all the different ancillary materials that all the buildings would buy. So over time, with the efficiency of the online testing, that's something that is kind of stabilized at the high school for the testing there, which our kids are benefiting from, and it provides a nice academic environment. It gives them the opportunity to meet the graduation requirements, although we'll continue to see where all of those requirements will go and where testing will go. We're all kind of anxiously awaiting, what's going to happen for this year and beyond. But those are some of the major accounts that fall under my watch. Any questions?
What are our retirement numbers this year?
We don't have many. Right now, I think I know of 3 or 4 that are going. There's some other ones that are possible, but have not committed yet. So we could have as many as 6 or 7, but
There were years we had 8 at the high school, and I was like, we were kind of shedding our skin for a period of time.
So Dennis City had 2.
Yeah.
What levels of the others did you have?
Elementary. Right now, I think they're elementary and high school.
All right. Thank you very much.
That was our last presentation. I don't know if there's any public.
Any public participation for agenda items only? Any non-agenda items? Do we have any public? I don't think we have any residents here. So. All right. Need a motion to close the meeting?
Motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Thanks, everybody.
See you all in 2 weeks.